Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crosse Commission Podcast. My name is Saif Fakadu. On the other line with me is Jake Nazar. Jake, real good to be back on the mic with you, kid. How you been, man?
Good. Glad to have you back, Saif. The big man is back. The dynamic duo back in the saddle.
Two guns.
Who mentioned that one often? That poster, that back to back.
It's just so good. It's so good.
I've been a good buddy. When was the last good buddy cop movie? Tenet. That was Tenet.
That's Tenet.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
The good guys. I think hopefully maybe they get a sequel. That brings it back. But yeah, we need
nice
to
get nice guys.
Nice guys.
Nice guys. I watched it. God, man, I'm still waiting. That's been almost 10 years.
Yeah, no, it's time.
Nice
get,
guys.
Get Russell back in the gym.
Russell, he'll be even more perfect for now. It's been 10 years. Russell, he's got to be like 60, something like 65 now.
He's even bigger than he was in that, the crazy trucker movie.
That might be what I do when I get off here. Just run down what Russell Crowe's filmogaphy has been for like the last 15 years. He's got some just total stinkers in there.
Or the priest, right? It's like the exorcist.
Yes. Oh,
the
man.
Pope's exorcist. Yes. Oh my God. That's all right. All season pod. Yeah, it was just a Russell Crowe breakdown.
He just doesn't stop me. He made 5 movies last year.
He's prolific.
One of them archive. Oh, it's Gladiator 2 archive footage only. Pope's Exorcist. 4 movies in 2022. Like he looked like he was slowing down there for me. He's picking it back up.
No, right back at it. Just got like 4 ways.
4 ways.
He's going to be Herman Goring in Nuremberg.
Who's making this movie? Nuremberg?
That's why he's been putting on the pounds. It's for this role.
Wow, I haven't heard of this movie. Russell Crowe as Herman Goring.
Yeah.
Rami Malek as Douglas Kelly. Michael Shannon as Robert Jackson.
Who's Hijack? I just saw Conspiracy because I saw like a YouTube clip with Kenneth Branagh as Hijack. I was like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. Obviously a horrible but it's like, no, this should be. I guess it's going to be based about all the trials. Wow, it's going to be.
Yeah, probably good. It looks like it's a good cast. Kenneth Branagh done that guy doesn't. That guy doesn't make bad movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was in Murder in the Orient Express, so maybe I should take that back. But Oppenheimer.
He was in that Tom Clancy movie, and I remember watching it randomly on a weekend, and I was like,
Jack Ryan, the one with Chris Pine.
Yes, and Kira, who I love. I remember I just said to chat, I was like, "This movie goes hard," and you're like, "Where's that coming from?" I was like, "I just watched it. Kenneth Branagh, he's going so hard."
It's a good. I actually like. Yeah, I think it's a decent movie, but like the movie came out like 6-7 years ago.
I remember the chat. I was like, I'm just watching it now. It's really.
God, he was
so definitely my favorite Pine. I don't know the best Pine or best Chris, but my favorite Chris.
He's the best Pine. He's the best.
Yeah, definitely.
To tie it back into Tenet, man, he was killer in Tenet.
Yeah,
he was great.
If you need a Eastern Europeanish bad guy,
who's not actually Eastern European,
he's
from Belfast.
Yeah, I was just saying, isn't he Irish? Yeah,
he's Irish.
He needs to be good. He's big. Call Big Ken.
Conspiracy. No, that's a BBC. It was a BBC. BBC used to make a lot of those it used to make a lot of those TV movies.
Oh.
I feel like BBC actually in England back in the day. There was one with Daniel Craig was in it. I remember because I watched it for a college class. And it was really good. It's based on the book.
Archangel?
No, it's about the speaking of, again, tying with Oppenheimer kind of to a degree. It's about 2 of the atomic scientists So like all the like it's Craig plays Stephen Rea is the other who's also in it.
Copenhagen?
And it's called Copenhagen. Yes, Copenhagen. And yeah, it's Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr.
Yeah.
And about like how Niels Bohr is in Oppenheimer. Who does Branagh play him? I think he does.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just tying every loop together here in this conversation. So, yes, Branagh plays Niels. So Niels Bohr is like the father of all the atomic scientists, or consider that time like the father of like the atomic science, and he was like the mentor for Heisenberg. And there was the gist of it is like this. It's based off a play done by that was done a couple years prior to that, and the play kind of like it's essentially they're like it's done in the style that they're like all like deceased at this point, and so they're like their spirits have like returned to this. Heisenberg like went to Copenhagen at one point in like 1941, and it's presumed like he spoke to Bohr, and it was like why did he go and speak to him? And it was like was it because like the Nazis were like close to having a bomb, and he like or like was it because he needed help with the bomb, like trying to figure out how to make it, and it's kind of dealing with like their like sort of relationship because Bohr is like kind of sort of off putting towards him because Heisenberg's building the bomb for the Nazis, and Heisenberg is like kind of like in the way he's framed in this movie again like real. I'm not speaking like real life because it's the question of like how committed he was in real life is sort of tricky, but like in this one it's kind of framed that he's like he's like I'm just kind of like it was sort of like that's what I was doing, like I'm not committed like ideologically, but like I'm a scientist and I was like trying to solve the question essentially. But yeah, that was done like they did it was done 2002. It was by BBC. It was really good. Yeah, Craig's in it, and Stephen Rea is in it. Yeah, I remember watching it. Yeah, I remember they used to do a lot of those. Like, I know now. I mean, obviously they do the TV series, and they're like what? Like they're basically like 1 hour. The seasons are like just like 3-4 1 hour episodes. I remember they used to do a lot of those like 1 hour kind of or 2 hour just kind of TV specials and stuff.
Oh yeah, just 20 minutes. 6 episodes for a series or the most sometimes. That was the proper way to like binge something. But we just decided like, what if we just, did it with like whole TV shows? It's like, no, because I was seeing, I don't know if you've watched the Pit. I haven't heard things, but yeah, I've heard, and it seems really good. I'll check it out. And I saw someone like posting about it, and they were like, how did like, because it drops like it does like the old way, it just drops one episode every week, and someone's like, how do we get by before with this? Like waiting 50 something hours for the next episode, and it was like, well, the thing was they had other shows on every night that you could watch. Yeah, it's all cable. Yeah. It's like it came out Wednesday, and on Thursday or Friday you watch something else. So you can watch that one or watch something else. Exactly. It wasn't the only show that did, in a sea of, every other show just dropping on whatever. But I keep hoping they're gonna, every year we do this, it's like we're gonna bring television back. every year I kind of lose faith more and more. Call us NBC. I tell you, I watched Quiz Show. I was like, man, TV, they were really running things for a long time. It's like every time someone reposts that Fox lineup, like 1999, King of the Hill, X-Files. Banger. Just not missing. It's right in the demo, right in each one. It's like those Virginia lineups in Nostalgia. It's like just off the assembly line. Just oh wow, here's another one. Oh my god, yes. Oh man. Well, Landman, right? I mean, yeah, I feel like I got like in some places, but I got through like 8 episodes, and I was like, I don't know why I'm watching this anymore. And I was like, Billy Bob really goes for it. She's really Billy Bobbing it up.
Billy Bob is great. He kills it. At a certain point, I feel like I'm just like, how much is it worth just watching Billy Bob, be Billy Bob? And it's like, it pushes.
This kind of goes back to what I say. I was like, about The Wire, I only care about the Trap House or Game of Thrones. I only care about King's. I really just care what Billy is in their truck or on the site or the industry, other families. So I understand why they need to.
Well, it's like they have like two plots. It's like, they have the one with the daughter and the one with the son. And, like, I can deal with the one with the son because I think the son, like, he's the son's a decent actor. And it's sort of like tangentially related to.
Something's going. It's part of the plot, like move the story along.
He has that scene with the lawyer where he's basically.
I love that lawyer. Yeah, I love that.
Like where he just he backs her down. He basically just posts her up. He just backs her down the paint. It's like, all right, this is like tied into the show. And they're like, and that's really good. Then the stuff with the other, like the family, it's like there's nothing here. We're just filling time. Like it's just plot filler. Like,
and all respect to Ali Larder, like millennial of a certain age, all respect to the third high heat. But some of the storyline,
I'm like, what is the point of this?
The nursing home. So what are we doing?
I think that's what I topped out. I got to my. That's it.
That was your Lena Dunham moment, like mine right now. Once upon a time.
I was just, and I
think we're done here.
I hate being that guy. I'm like, I want to see it through, and I hate just being like all this, like, what are we? I'm like, what is originally the point of this whole issue? Like, it's like every 3 episodes, it's like, oh yeah, he's facing against a cartel. I'm like, I haven't seen the cartel guys in like 3 episodes.
We've been trying to call you, man. Where have you been?
Like, where did they go to? I don't know.
Well,
I might finish it look, I hate leaving stuff on the like when I start something like
they needed to do more with him. Like he was just great.
He's very he has only like 3 or 4 scenes where it actually feels like he's because he's in there and it's John Hamm. And every time you see him, it's like, oh wow, John Hamm.
Yeah.
There's only like 3 or 4 scenes where it's like
that's the head coach of Penn State.
There's only like 3 or 4 scenes where it's like that's why you paid John Hamm for.
Oh yeah, the lunchroom scene was great where he's like, tell the British dude, he's like, you guys shut up, like, come on.
The one where he's on the phone, the one where he's on the phone with the lawyer, the one we talked about. There's like 1 or 2 other ones. There's one with Billy Bob early in the show.
Yeah, he kind of tells Billy, like, you don't yell at me, I'll do what you want to do.
Get your shit together.
That's not how this works.
But other than that, it's like, I'm like, he's basically just being John Hamm. He might as well have had Tams there, It's like, he doesn't do anything. He like talks on the phone and says 5 words and then
in a coma for like the last 4 episodes.
Surgery. What was the point of having him? Like, presumably he costs a high amount of money. I mean, he's John Hamm. I don't know. Maybe he just took the gig because he wanted to, which fair enough. But yeah, it's like he only 3 or 4 scenes where he actually really sinks his teeth into it. Otherwise, he's just Billy Bob just calls me like, okay, yeah. It's like, all right.
And move on.
Move on. Yeah,
what do you want us to do, boss?
Like, you could have just had any just guy, just typed, searched up guy to play oil magnets. So yeah, no. I don't know how to make it. I got no transition there. Well, Tams.
The best show on TV right now is the College Lacrosse season.
Listen, it has a engaging lead protagonist.
Oh,
yeah. It has drama. So there's some great games this season. Certainly, it has a bunch of questions. I feel like we need resolved.
Eager usurpers in the near background,
just lingering around. A lot of teams, loitering, just outside the convenience store, just kind of like walking, just kind of, what's that guy doing in the parking lot? You got Notre Dame down there, and you're just like, Notre Dame's cars.
Just like Butterman from Martin, just chilling. You know, just chilling there.
You got some new teams come. Nick Myers and Joe Bresci basically doing like their version of the Undertaker, or that guy in the casket on the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, very few teams feel out of it at this point, but simultaneously, very few teams feel like they are kind of sitting comfortable. I don't know that anyone's really thinking like, oh man, we're in a great spot. I feel great about where we're at.
Exactly. I feel good. Nobody does.
And I think that kind of gets into the segment we're gonna take a look at here as we get into conference play. As we got the Crosse Commission Podcast, episode 146. We're entering the mud fight here. I think, it feels like the teams in contention for these spots are all kind of known. The potential bids in the NCAA tournament are all relatively well known, but who ultimately winds up where and which are the 2 or 3 teams that sort of at the end of the day miss out. Again, who could really say? If you the RPI is still not super, still probably maybe needs another week or two fully bake, but there's a kind of just a decent encapsulation of it. I think is there's only 4 teams who have a top 5 RPI win. Then there's 5 teams who have a top 10 RPI win. And then there are 16 teams with a top 20 win. Small pool that enlarges greatly when we kind of get out to 11 20. And again, not many teams, have been eliminated yet from kind of contention. I did a, tweet. I was mentioning the other after the Richmond Duke, or after watching St. Joe's used to beat Penn, how it feels like the A10, probably any A10 runner-up is, which probably, they probably needed to be Richmond, probably doesn't have a shot of getting a second bid. And that was, pretty unfortunate because the league is as strong as it's been in recent years. It's really strong again this year. Richmond and St. Joe's are still in the top 20, but you got UMass as well in the top 20, and they've got 3 teams in the top 14 of RPI. They're 12, 13, and 14 right there. The league's in some ways taking advantage of the fall off of the Big East, but couldn't quite take enough advantage of it. By Richmond kind of losing these 2 games, that dream's basically, I'd say, kind of done at this. Any kind of Richmond hope of an at-large is probably, unfortunately, done. You got like the Patriot League. You still got Army lingering with that game against North Carolina later on, and then even in the ACC, you go all the way down to Virginia, who's certainly been pushed all the way back against the wall about as far as you can, but there's still ACC play, and that's what we talk about, the mud fight. Carolina's going to be, every game for Carolina is going to be, a knife fight, or not Carolina, Virginia. It's going to be, a knife fight. So a lot of teams still sort of, unsure, I think, of their ultimate kind of where they fall. I think, the teams, kind of, we know who the teams probably will be, but how it all shakes out feels sort of in flux, is kind of how I would put it. And so we're going to kind of take stock before conference play here. We're going to do a little, game. And we're going to split these teams up into 3 categories. So we're going to take a look at who is sitting pretty, Who going into conference play feels like, man, we're doing great. Like we love where we're at. We're can't rest on your laurels, but where we're at, we're pretty good. Then who's got work to do? Need to keep pushing. And then finally, last part, who's desperate? Who is, just chewing, dog on a bone, just chewing for every last breath that they got. I'm going to take a look at it from how these teams are kind of playing right now. How they've been playing so far in the month of March, the last couple weeks, maybe how they're trending, positively or negatively. And then Safe's going to look at it from sort of a resume kind of perspective. Do we, how's our, do we feel like we got enough wins in non-conference play? Do we, are we set in conference play? Even if disaster strikes in conference play, do we feel good? Or do we need to, still kind of do some work? Or are we, get a move on? Every game is basically a kind of conference championship game for us. So, Safe, I'll give it over to you. From kind of a resume sort of perspective, who feels who's sitting well about what they did in non-conference play?
Jake, Maryland, for sure. Princeton, I have no doubt on. Penn State, to an extent. If they just maybe one pro deal, which is a little bit better. Like I think what they did to Cornell, I was just really impressed with, like being able to win with that. But they kind of close. If I'm like honestly, the only ones like totally safe are Princeton and Maryland. They have the arc. I know it's too early, maybe not, but I do take stock in like left field.
It's more closer now, than the last 2 weeks ago.
And number wise, like the difference between Maryland and Princeton is like about 0.03, but like that is pretty much the difference between like Maryland and like Cornell. And even Penn State.
The Loyola game is just killing Maryland.
Right, it's the same thing. I said that to Mark about Hopkins. I was like, I think right now Hopkins is bubble out. But I say Princeton and Maryland, results-wise, like Princeton losing to Cornell wasn't the greatest, but results-wise, I think they've done what they needed to do. The numbers are gorgeous for both of them. Shout out to our boy Zach at Lacrosse Reference. I primarily use his RPI page, and they're kind of head and shoulders above pretty much everybody else below. They're the only ones, above 0.7. And their sense of schedule, or it's like number 1 for Princeton and number 3 for Maryland. So, in my opinion, like locks, like safe for God, lock of the decade is Princeton, Maryland. Like it said, like there's kind of teams kind of closer. I thought Cornell, you could make a case for Cornell, but I think for a little bit you could maybe say like similarly, like Denver's not really helping that much. Lehigh win's actually pretty good. It's like kind of close to a top 20 RPI, but that Richmond win is starting to like would have been a little better versus beat Duke, but Richmond has a solid RPI. So like they're kind of good, but like in terms of like like I said, like springing off of the page, like in terms of like who's really done it, kind of think Princeton is right behind Maryland. Sweeping Duke and North Carolina, not having a letdown against Rutgers in a tough in-state game right off the bat. Beating Penn State in overtime. In the bubble, like Princeton's done the what they always say. Those like grind hard like podcasters. They did the work. Jake. They got to the grind. They woke up 4 o'clock, got out there, did their run. Did they put in the work. And like I said, the numbers like really support them. I've been thinking a lot about what you said of like, was that ruling non-conference play going to impact income? The conference, and it's like that may be the question for you and me at the end of the show. Am I going to the Harvard Princeton game this weekend? But yeah, I'm just like, if anytime maybe Harvard would want to play Princeton, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not. Maybe the little bit's passed between all the really tough non-con games. But yeah, these type of things kind of build up on. See, this guy, what happened was in 2022. Like,
yeah,
we did great non-con. started playing Ivy schedule. That's kind of where they ended up even making the Ivy League tournament. So
3-3, I think, in Ivy League play. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll go 500, but they're already 0-1 in the conference. So that's a little bit of a concern. But like right now, like we were talking about, like a snapshot, Princeton, Maryland, in my opinion. Yeah.
Princeton's the only one I would say. I mean, I think Maryland's the only lock I would say. Just because of the record.
Yeah.
If you're Princeton, just like if disaster strikes, you go, I don't know, 1-2. You go something bad terribly happens, and you're hovering around. I still think hovering around 500, they'd be fine. But just because their wins are their wins are immense. What they put up on the board: Penn State, Duke, Carolina. You can't say much more about that. But do I think Princeton's very close to Princeton beats Harvard this weekend? We amend this segment and put them right next to Maryland, at least from a resume kind of perspective. From the perspective of how are these teams playing kind of on the field? How are we trending? How have we been playing in the month of March compared to February? Have we improved? Have we kind of taken a step? Have we maybe taken a step back? How many questions do we have about this team, their ability to be make them run to Memorial Day weekend? I think there's one team sitting pretty or sitting well, and it's Maryland.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean that I think Maryland is necessarily a prohibitive favorite to win the national championship, because I don't. And it doesn't mean that I think that they are necessarily. Doesn't even necessarily mean they're the favorite to win it. I think if you probably had to handicap someone at this point, maybe they'd be the team you pick. But it's just that if you look at all the teams right now, how they've played up to this point, how they're trending, and how many questions do you have about them? I have probably the fewest amount of questions about Maryland. At least in terms of getting to the Final Four. I think everybody has probably some questions about winning a national championship, winning 2 games in 3 days. But just in terms of winning a final or making a Final Four, I have the fewest amount of questions about Maryland, and the way they've been playing, particularly in the month of March, is pretty staggering. Adjusted offensive efficiency in the month of March, 41.5% in their games, the last 2 games against Notre Dame, Delaware, and Virginia. That's up 6.5% from where it was early in the season. If you look at just raw offensive efficiency, they went from 31% up to 36%. Defensive efficiency, as good as their defense was in February, it's played even better in the last 3 games. Adjusted defense efficiency from 19.8 to 13.7. Raw defensive efficiency lowered it from 22.9 to 18.1. Turnover percentage cut down. The only potential thing you might want to look at is the face-off percentage. They did dip in raw face-off win percentage from 60 to 43. There's kind of been a split in their face-off play between Shea Keithler and Sean Crater. Keithler has stayed pretty solid. He was winning 60%, I think, in their first 4 games. I think the last 3 games he's at 50%, whereas Crater's at like 30 from 50. Crater he scored a goal against Virginia this weekend, so he does have more of the offensive punch of the two. I don't think they'll make any change. I think, for them, just load managing both guys is probably the number one priority, especially with, as we talked about, kind of where they're sitting at this point, and getting through Big Ten play. I think continuing to load manage it, they'll be fine with that. So they've played better in March than they did in February, and they played pretty well in February. They obviously had the Loyola game in there, which was by far their worst game of the year. But the Syracuse and Princeton wins were really impressive. The Richmond game, impressive as well. If you're looking at, can I see what Maryland has right now and picture that going to a Final Four? It's pretty easy to do that. You've got a goalie in Logan McNaney who I think is, most valuable player of the year. I don't think there's a player at their position playing better than he is right now relative to, the rest of his position. He's been unbelievable. What he's done through, he's saving at 67%. I talked about Saturday with Ryan. That Virginia game, he was just, that was, a clinic, the way he played against Virginia. You have a defense that is just completely locked in, with a goalie, a 6-year senior goalie, deep on defense. They play pretty much 6 poles deep. They got a bunch of shorties deep. They just are so in tune the way they're playing defensively. Good face-off play pretty much overall. And then you got an offense that is starting to develop depth. They have a good second midfield that they've been running. They're not turning the ball over. Is a Maryland team that is first in clearing. At least they were. I'll check them, but last week they were first in clearing in the country. They're clearing over 90%. They had the fewest amount of turnovers in the country, and they have a goalie saving the way McNaney's playing, a defense playing the way they are, and an offense that is pretty darn efficient. Can that formula for Maryland make a Final Four? We've seen that formula for Maryland make numerous Final Fours. So they're the only one where I think, are there still questions? Yeah. They probably don't have one great player on offense. They got a lot of really good ones. Maybe they don't have one standout stud. Behind, you maybe question peak too early, things like that. Face-off plays, their Notre Dame game, they started to get dominated on kind of face-off play. Do they need more transition goals? We've seen some of that from them, but other times they're really content to play it 6-on-6. But overall, I think they're the team where there's just the fewest amount of questions about them overall right now. And the formula they have, again, best clearing team in the country, fewest amount of turnovers, best goalie, lead defense, and an offense that is shooting the ball really well, has a bunch of options, and ranks inside the top 10, in offensive efficiency right now. Is that a formula for success for Maryland? Yeah, that's kind of a classic sort of Maryland formula. The vintage Maryland doesn't beat themselves kind of formula is playing itself out right now. So they're the only one I would say is, in terms of how they've been playing, is sitting really, really pretty. It's kind of how I feel.
There's a team I kind of want to throw in there, but maybe is a little bit hot. And it's maybe from the standpoint of expectations going in.
Is it North Carolina?
To an extent, for sure, because there hasn't been a letdown. Again, non-con play was good. Opponents, you can say whatever, losing to Princeton. You could make an argument maybe they haven't been as challenged as they could have been. But Jake, the Harvard Crimson, in terms of the Colgate.
I still have questions, but they're answering more. They're answering more of them.
Right, and this is I think going in, we're hey, they gotta finish in top 4 of the Ivy. Maybe this is the year where we can start saying, what's going on there if they don't put it together. But I just think there seems to be a real they'll bang it out with you. Syracuse can have 24 more possessions in the game, and they'll just we'll just go over 50% in offensive efficiency, and we'll win that game in the Dome. They have maybe the best offense. I don't know. Again, we'll see where Chip's they're not scoring less than the worst game was Providence. Their first game of the season scored 12 goals. Everything else has been 14 and above. And again, you could say are they going to be there for the distance? But it was they beat their arch nemesis Yale. They got a Princeton team that definitely I just lauded them 5 minutes ago. about like how great they are. But it's just like, yeah, it was a tough non-conference set. It's going to be a tough game at home. And I just don't think like Harvard's going to be like afraid. I mean, they just played.
No, I don't either.
Like I think they're going to go in there with a confidence like we got a bunch of chance to win this game here. And it's just like if they win it, then maybe that just makes this take even better. But if they lose, it's not the end of their season because I think like they're probably going to finish in the top 3 in the Ivy. So I'm just saying like in terms of like how they're playing, where they are, because like they don't have house money yet, but it's just like they're
sure. I think, but in terms of if I'm looking at how they're, if I'm asking questions about them, the big one for me was their defense, and they felt like a very. After the Cuse game and the Marquette game, especially, they won 20-16 against Marquette. It felt like they had one path of the way to play. Yeah. They had to play Harlem Globetrotters with you. It was just, and the way they lost that Colgate game, that's what I felt like they had to play. The last 2 weeks against Michigan and Yale, their defense has played really well in the second half to allow them to get those victories, allowing 1 goal in the fourth quarter in both games. So their defense has come along. I still think it needs to show more improvement. They still need to see more, but I'm pleased with what I've seen by that. Unfortunately, big thing is they feel like a kind of very similar this game against Princeton and Harvard, 2 teams who do feel like mirror images of each other in some way. Great offense, elite offenses, good defense. I think good defenses potential. Or Princeton, I think's defense is good, not great. That I think is being, and Harvard I think has the potential to be good. It's not there yet. But that are being sagged down by 2 major factors. Their face-off play is just potentially crippling.
Yeah.
Like Harvard is winning 34% of face-offs on the season. Like that's just a glaring like bright like warning sign. So I'll do mine. I get like teams I have in the work to do section. Maybe I have to split this up because it feels like a lot. As you can tell, I don't have like kind of one team in the, No,
your point at the beginning, just not to cut you off, but it's like, not to make a juvenile comparison, but it's like that song, Hokey Pokey. Like, nobody's really in and nobody's really out, except for Maryland in and Princeton to an extent, except for in. But yeah, like, nobody should feel comfortable because the situation can change drastically for anybody. I was like, Cornell beating Princeton, that's great, I think, for them, because it's a big hurdle in the Ivy League play, and that's a big chip in their pile. But yeah, nobody's like, I love this like kind of limbo-ish like purgatory where pretty much every team outside of Maryland, Princeton are right now.
And honestly, it's not. I wouldn't even describe it that. It just kind of feels that way, I think, because of the way the last couple of years have gone. Where it feels after non-conference play, we're like, oh, well, these 3 ACC teams, Notre Dame, Duke, and Virginia, are in the tournament. And to a lesser extent, but still pretty so, Maryland, Penn State are probably in the tournament. It's like, all right, well, we kind of know what we know. If you go back and look at, remember Mark, Powell, Felix, who does the, bracketology, hopefully we'll have him on in a couple weeks. He was showing me, like, he did one for, like, the 2016 season. Because someone asked him, like, kind of take a look at the 2016 season and how he would have, like, done that, bracketology. And he was, like, showing me, like, the numbers he had. And it's like, that looks like a totally different universe to the season we have now. It's like a team, like, everybody had, like, a bad loss. It's like bad loss basically matter. Everyone took a bad loss. It was, I think, your point of, and that's kind of goes with this. I think you might, say if this is something for you to touch on. Very few of these teams will be deemed a bad loss. I think a big part of that is to the point you've been making for a while about the way these teams schedule now. These teams are like siloing themselves into only playing each other. Yes. Whereas before you would get a lot more games. Hopkins would play UMBC or other teams. Syracuse to a degree still is, but they would more often. I mean, Syracuse doesn't have Albany on the schedule this year. They had them for a time period there. The other teams they play. Maryland, up until 2019, still played like Bucknell. They played Villanova for a while there. it was just the schedules. If you go, honestly, I would recommend it. Go take a look if you ever get a chance. Go take a look at your favorite teams. One of your favorite teams is kind of in this top 5 or 10, or just anywhere top 5 or 10 team. Go look at their schedule now compared to where it was like 7-8 years ago, and see the way they've won a lot more teams, won fewer games. That's people like they've shrunk the number of games. Is that good or bad? Who knows? I was reading Quint's top 20 his article, and he was kind of expressing some apprehension about Notre Dame.
Oh yeah,
the 12 team schedule, because that was what hurt them in 2022.
It's great, but
it rules when it works. Yeah.
That's when it's like everything starts like, oh my god, things get really tight really quick. Yeah,
I was talking with it because this goes with it. Look at the ACC and how the ACC really feels like a true, flag term, like a conference this year, in the sense that these games matter. In the past, it was really like, what are the stakes for these games? Because they don't play for an AQ, and these teams are already basically in the tournament. So I don't know what the stakes are. It was basically everybody even when you were losing, you were winning.
Those like physics tricks where they like put a bunch of like dice, and if you do it consistently in the right speed, they'll like the dice rolls. That's what the ACC is when they win the non-con games, because then everything's set up. And then you just play each other, and then you just funnel those wins to each other. Now we already are locked in.
And especially in the last couple, in those years where they didn't have the conference tournament.
Yes.
So everybody played like 6 conference games.
And you play each other, and then it's just like you lock in that freshness, because everybody is in the top 12. Even if the year when Virginia lost every single conference game, they because they played that conference and they had they drag
top 20 right now.
Yeah, and it drags them in. But if you don't have that set up, then you're in here where it's just like, as the Joker says, they'll eat each other, because now these wins, not only like it's just sort of positioning, it's just like we need these wins, because the Notre Dame, I don't think they'll fall below 500, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, or at least you'll be bored. I was trying to put them like, if these teams go 1-3 in the ACC, where are they feeling? How are they feeling? Like if Carolina goes 1-3, how do they feel? It's like they still have the Army game in the back pocket, and they might feel okay. Syracuse, if they go 1-3, maybe less so, but they have the Cornell game in the back pocket. Virginia, if they go 1-3, over, Dunzo, season over.
Yeah.
Duke, if they go 1-3, maybe could kind of, in
the right light,
it's it kind of could come squeeze a little bit. Notre Dame 1-3. I was like, and then somebody mentioned to me, they're like, well, if Notre Dame goes 1-3, they'll be like 6-5, and it's like, yeah, that's where or no, if they go 1-3, yeah, I think they have one more. Does Notre Dame have one more non-con? Yeah, they have Penn. They have the Penn game.
Yeah, Penn game again.
Yeah, so we assume if they win that, they'll be 6-5. Like that's where it does. Now again, do I think they'll go 1-3? No, I think they'll probably go 3-1. I would make them. I don't know if we mentioned where the Notre Dame UNC game was this year. If it's in Arlada, I would probably make Notre Dame the favorite in every ACC game they play still.
So they're 4-2 now. I mean, that's a tight rope, dude.
Of course, yeah.
Virginia, who's like going to be, like a rabid dog out there in North Carolina.
Yeah, no, again,
1-3 gives you 5-5, and then you have to win the game.
Yes, precisely. Like, and again, do I think they go 1-3? No, I think, but it was an interesting kind of topic of it. But to my point about the work to do, I'll kind of split these up into maybe 2 tiers, some, and then a lot. And I don't want to say a lot, but more. I think you have North Carolina. I would put in the kind of a mild work to do column. I want to kind of see them in ACC play against some of these teams. Both the games they played against Hopkins and Princeton were very close, 1-goal games. I'd like to, and then they played Michigan and Penn, but what are those games? Not really sure. Reflective they are. Carolina's offense is certainly looking, strong. Their defense is playing pretty solid at 20th in defensive efficiency. They've got great face-off play with Brady Wambach, maybe some of the best in the country. And Gianfranco Carlos played pretty well too. I want to see with Carolina. How does the depth, how does that kind of emerge out the scoring depth? Also with Duffy and Petra. They've had games where guys have come along, but over a consistent 4 to 5 game conference slate and then going into the tournament, do they have other guys that they really feel confident in? If teams can hold those guys in check, there's going to be games if you get to maybe a quarterfinal game or maybe even a first round game, depending on who you play. There's going to be moments. I remember that game they played against Rutgers, where it was Lance Tillman. Big kind of key for them in that game. And then Connor McCarthy, who was a transfer from Princeton, played second midfield. He scored the game-winning goal. There's going to be moments where you need other options. Who do they feel are the other options? James Madden's got 17 points. Ty English has 12 goals. Who do they look at as the other sort of pieces that they want to look toward? But overall, they don't appear to have a lot, in terms of their units, they don't appear to have a lot of weaknesses the way they're performing, I would say. Penn State, for me, it's health. From how I've seen this team play so far, if you just look across the board, they are top 15. They're top 10 in offense and face-off percentage, top 15 in adjusted defense, and then top 20 as well in save percentage. Rock solid across the board. We talk about a very similar Penn State kind of looking team to what we've seen the last couple of years, but with better face-off play, which that's a mighty enticing proposition considering how good Penn State's been on both sides of the ball the last couple of years. But what do the injuries look like? Where is Matt Trainer, Kyle Lehman? Those are one of those guys going out, especially if it's Trainer, I think makes it a lot hard on Penn State. Harder. Both of those guys out. And you had, a third attackman as well. That becomes Ryan Duraco. Look, that's just significant. I saw the Cornell game. The Cornell game was an incredible comeback. It was kind of classic Penn State. You can't expect that every week. For the bulk of that game, they really had trouble scoring 6-on-6, obviously, because they're down 3, starting attackmen. So for me, it's health for them. What if this weekend, that Ohio State game, if they are without those guys, 2 of those guys, I think they're going to have a lot of trouble scoring on that Ohio State defense. If they have them there, look, I think this is a top 5 team. But that's a big question on Penn State. Their season can go in a lot of different directions depending on the health of those players. Cornell, again, I put in some work to do. My question with them is, I have nothing on the offense. That offense is another Ken you could talk about, maybe the best offense in the country. I think that face-off plays really improved with Jack Haskinen coming back. That's helped their defense. Their defense looks numbers-wise significantly improved. I think a big part of that is they're playing less possessions. I think the second part is they're communicating better defensively, and their polls are good. They're maximizing their poll. I like the way they played against Princeton, making Princeton dodge more against the poles, try and get it behind the net. I do have a lot of questions about Cornell shorties, though. Short stick defensive midfield for Cornell. I've seen a lot. That Richmond game, they got ran by a lot. The Princeton game, even at the start of the game, Princeton was able to run by their shorties and have success early. That feels like there are areas there. Face off, your defensive midfield. These are areas that teams target. Like when they get a week of prep and they can kind of hone it on film, they're like, we want to go after that. So I like kind of what I've seen from Cornell, but that's a big area where it's, a team with a Notre Dame, a Maryland, and these other teams with a full week of prep, they would target that. Princeton, they're tricky because they really have one kind of look. I do think their defense needs to get better, but but it is hard to make an accurate flex defense because I think they have one hole, but the hole is so big that they could lose in the first round with this. And that feels crazy to say, but when you're winning faceoffs I'm usually the guy who's like, hey, listen, you can get by with 45, 46, 47, 48% faceoff play. You can kind of, MacGyver it together. Princeton's not at that where they're at right now. In adjusted faceoff percentage, Princeton is 65th. The only team eight power, what we would say, forget big three. The only team in like a big six conference, so like I'll include A10, Big East, Patriot League. Worse is Harvard, who's 72nd.
Harvard had that one disastrous 6 years ago where they were like 18, which I wonder if they had just like a 30th. Would it be a little higher than Princeton?
Harvard otherwise is. Nah, still, they haven't won above 46% all year. Harvard in a single game. The best was against Michigan. They won 46%. Against Yale, they won 35%. Princeton, I think that you look at their possessions.
Oh, it's just because they're negative possessions in every single game.
Yes, and they are. In 3 games, they've been minus double digits in possessions, and they've won, which is insane.
Yeah, it's weird that the Maryland game is the one where they're like only -1. Everything else has been like a significant.
Yeah, in possession plus minus against Penn State -13, Maryland -4, Duke -3.
You know where they rank?
Are they dead last?
For possessions.
Are they dead last?
You're like close 70.
That's the kind of thing that just gets you.
Iona is doing better possessions this year than Princeton at 69.
Yeah, in raw possession plus minus, Princeton is if you just go with the raw, so just like the total, they're 74th. Princeton-Harvard is 74th.
Yeah, I was doing adjusting. Yeah, the raw.
Yeah. The only 2 teams worse are Mercyhurst and Hampton. That game's gonna be crazy this weekend. Like those, it's maybe it finally evens out, or who knows? Maybe someone wins.
I think I'm gonna have to go to this game, Jake. I'm gonna try to do a tax cuts chat. When they do defense, God goes wild. Both sides showing in.
So I don't want to be crazy. Say as good as Princeton's played, like they could lose, but yeah, if you
can get got with that.
With that, like what Harvard had. But in most games, if you lose 28-32, that's it. It's over. I think everything else for Princeton, I do believe is, again, I don't think that their defense is great, but also how much do you tell their defense with how much defense they're playing? And I think their transition defense is good. So Princeton, it's just a big warning sign. I think their offense is very good. It's maybe not as exposed maybe as we thought, up to this point. They're 4th in adjusted offensive efficiency. There have been moments where it's maybe been, but again, you saw that in that Cornell game. I mentioned Ryan. It's like they finally won some faceoffs. They scored like 4 goals in 4 straight possessions. So they're in the sum work. I feel like they're kind of hovering because it's one thing, but it's the way it's it's such a big thing.
And that's the thing that keeps your offense at bay. Because if the other team has the ball, and you just you can go through balls, then you feel everything gets a little tighter. You feel got to make up time and goals. So.
The other ones I would put in there, I put Notre Dame in this kind of summer too. Question: the third attack spot for Notre Dame. Where can they get production? They moved Devin McClain down there. Can they find consistency there? Other guys beside Chris. Right now, it's very Chris Kavanaugh in terms of their dodging. It's kind of Chris Kavanaugh centric. Can they find other ways to threaten teams on offense? And then secondly, for Notre Dame, depth at short stick D-midi. They're kind of leaning on a lot of this. Like Ben Ramsey's playing a lot of minutes for them. So kind of can they develop some depth there? Will Lynch is doing Yeoman's work for them. He's been tremendous. Thomas Ricciardelli replacing Liam Entenmann. You never know with a freshman goalie in the tournament. That's always a kind of question mark. He's been very good, though. The defense, in terms of the long poles replaced, they got the great pair long poles of Campese and Donovan. So this is a really good team. And you've seen it. I mean, they've lost 2 games. They lost them by 1 goal.
I'm so happy you said that, Jay, because I feel like they're teetering on the brink, and then I'm like, they lost in a neutral site game to arguably the best team in the country right now.
Both games went down to the final 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's Ohio State one where they really, I think the Maryland game they're more chasing a little bit, but the Ohio State game they kind of collapsed, if we're being honest, in the last few minutes. And it's like Ohio State, had to, really fight for that win. But it's like, yeah, they're 2 1-goal games away from being undefeated, and that's also when I'm thinking we both act like, hey, the numbers right, yeah, they do need to get it going in ACC play. But I could also see them sweeping the ACC. It really could go either way with Notre Dame. And
I think they probably like where they're at because they've lost, able to take some of the attention away. I do think they have legitimate questions. I don't think it's quite like last year where we kind of probably ranked them they just kind of got sort of, they lost the game and so they just kind of moved because of the nature of the rankings. And it was in reality, that was the best team really all along. I do think they have legitimate questions, but it's, they're still in that next mix of teams, along with everyone else there. After this, I think I've got the last kind of in this some work to do. Honestly, and it's not even I'm kind of waiting for a big game with this team. I mean, this week I think will be a test because it's a team that's had their number lately. So I think this will tell us something, but it's really a game next week after that is Army.
Oh.
Army, we always mention sometimes it's not about who you play, it's about how you play. And the how you play for Army is spectacular. They've been dominating teams. That opening week against UMass looks better and better. 16-9. Beat Yale by 11. Rutgers by 6. I mean, these are not vintage of those versions of those teams. It's still dominated them. Defensively, they're putting up numbers even better than Maryland. Just in terms of the, look, they haven't given up. Army hasn't given up more than 5 goals since week 1. They gave up 9. What else can you say about that? The offensive numbers are maybe a little concerning. A lot of their goal totals are sometimes being benefited by kind of the face-off wins they get. Maybe Will Coletti didn't play against Lehigh, and they only won 19% of the faceoffs, and they still won 13-4. That's, again, not a great Lehigh team, but that's still something you do like to see. So this team is just let's see them against. I can't wait to see them against North Carolina. Their face-off with Coletti kind of gets matched up against Wambach. You get Duffy and Petro against that defense. It's looking much more like a vintage Army defense than we saw last year. Goalie play for them. So last year didn't feel like Army had great goalie play necessarily. I feel like a weakness for them compared to the norm. Now their goalie play is tremendous. Sean Burnett. So them is just kind of get them against the game against Carolina. If they win that game, then maybe some of these other teams. I'd love to see them against Navy if Navy can be at full health at the face, because I think that's I do like this Navy team. Again, this week against BU. BU's beaten Army like 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
So that's still that'll be a game that I think will tell us some things. I don't know if BU's necessarily is a vintage BU squad. I think it's a good team. I think it's a testament to Poli. I think we did
Forgive me, 4 games of
four games
twice
in a row,
that towards the part.
when we did the like the preseason top 20, and we had teams that were we did like our almost famous. BU was like the first one we mentioned, and it was because, hey man, BU's like always in the top 20 every season, and here they are again. It's a testament to Poli. Like, even with the kind of significant losses they've had, this team still feels like they just find their way into the top 20. So those are my teams. Everyone else after that, I think it's more in the multiple question category. Doesn't mean you can't still make a run. And all these teams, if you told me they're sitting here in a couple weeks or in like a month from now and they're in the top 5, I'd be like, sure. I won't be shocked. Duke, Ohio State, Harvard, Cuse, Hopkins, Georgetown. All of these teams are in the, lingering or loitering. It's hanging around there. Some maybe feel more threatening than others. But conference play feels like we got a better trend in how they play in the conference play. That'll tell us who's more poised for the tournament. I think I have multiple kind of questions with these two, as opposed to that Carolina, Penn State, Cornell, Princeton, Notre Dame group, which maybe it's one. But if these teams figure those out, I could certainly see. Look, Duke's record-wise can hang on there. Ohio State obviously has a big one over Notre Dame. Their offense it kind of keeps showing some flashes. Defense is obviously great. Q's got a big one over Hopkins. Hopkins has some questions with injuries and kind of goal, but their offense appears to be figuring some things out and playing really well, which you like having Big Ten play, because it's always hard to score in Big Ten play. So all these teams, Harvard, we just talked about. Look, Harvard beats Princeton. I mean, they'll be knocking on the door of the top 5. All these teams are kind of like one or two games away, just kind of good performances from vaulting right up there. So I'll turn it over to you. Resume-wise, who do we have in the work to do column?
Happy to start through Hopkins for sure. I was kind of talking with Mark yesterday. I got into my head. I was like, they're bubble out for me right now, I think. But that's why there's Big Ten play. There's a lot of great games available there for wins. But this is also a situation where I fear I can see them going 2-3, and those 2 wins are Rutgers and Michigan.
That's the Big Ten. The Big Ten. There's a gap this year in the Big Ten, the way there hasn't been in past years, where it's like the wins you actually get. Past year's Big Ten, it's like, I mean, if we go whatever combination of wins we get, we're good. Now it feels like you kind of need a specific that 3-win set might be pretty important.
The best case scenario for the top tier of the Big Ten is like they all go 3-2, and Michigan and Rutgers go 0-5.
Yes.
And then that's like the best case to get like 4 teams into the but because I think Hopkins is going to need a win out of the big 3. You can't have the only.
I think Ohio State does too.
Oh well, for sure. The only reason I gave Ohio State a little bit more just because they had that Notre Dame win, which right now it's a top 10-ish, top 5-ish, RPI win, but still like similar. So Ohio State's similar, but I just feel like Ohio State's got just like years of just like pent up rage. They're going to maybe this is the year they're going to exact it because like they're just defensively like, and just their antagonizing nature, like they get under team skin and. They get under like Tim is the coolest coach out there. He's like, Paul Newman, just like go like reaches water. And like I know maybe like you want to have a bit of public or something. I gotta believe Big Nick kind of gets under his skin a little bit, and it goes all the way back to 2017. Jake, remember the stare down? We still talking about that game.
I remember
It's just a work on Nick's
reminded me of that.
So it's amazing, and obviously, Glovegate, like they're just it's just Ohio State's just great, like antagonists. And some people get protagonists for the Ohio State, but they're
drama.
they're a character. Yeah, sorry.
It's great. It's great theater.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why sports are great. They're just unscripted dramas every time you watch, and it's like Ohio State like makes you feel something, and when they're rolling and that stadium's really like getting in, like so they got a kind of a good schedule. Maryland's going to be at Ohio State, so I'm saying like, and I could see one of these things where like, yeah, maybe they all get Michigan Rutgers wins, but they got somebody's got to peel off a win off of Maryland. Maybe it's Ohio State,
Yes.
like maybe the Penn State, but injury wise, that's the big question. But someone's got to take a win from Maryland. Maybe Hopkins going to be the one because just the nature of that rivalry. But someone's got to get something for Maryland. If someone can pull off 2 wins on Maryland, that'd be better for conference wise, obviously. But that's what I'm saying. Like I could see Maryland going 4-1, 5-0, and that kind of really messes up a chance for Ohio State if they don't beat up Maryland, because then they're really clinging to that Notre Dame win. Maybe you get a Hopkins win, but you don't have that Maryland win or a Penn State win to kind of bolster that RPI. But yeah, Penn State, I think they have a little bit of work to do just because of, like, as you noted, like injuries, like just getting healthy. Maybe that's the work that they need to do. I love that they had last weekend off. They had the kind of a short week, when they last played. But the Cornell win is huge. I think just confidence boost as well. Just like, hey, we're able to gut down a win like that, despite the odds and stuff like that. But Notre Dame for sure, work to do resume wise, like just scheduling. Like I think that Ohio State game is really kind of like messed up the the formula that they have. Because, sorry?
The math, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a formula. I think they want to have a limited number of games. They want to make sure to maximize the games that they have. They want to have enough non-con games that are definitely winnable, but respectable enough that you can't just say, oh, they're not playing anyone non-con. And, do what they need to do bare minimum, or, not a complete disaster in ACC play, and they're in the tournament. Worst case scenario, that's kind of like how the formula works. But if, you lose that Ohio State, I think that's why they, just detonated Michigan. They wanted no chance at all for the Wolverines to even feel like they had something, and they were just like, we just got to, crush them early and just not let it up. So for sure, I'm definitely with you with Duke and North Carolina and work to do. Like North Carolina, I love how they're playing for sure, but similar to you kind of said, like lightish on the non-con record. I mean, they got the Hopkins win, but Hopkins isn't on the verge of a top 10. But depending on how they do in Big Ten play, maybe that win doesn't stack up. Duke, just the way that they've been playing, like just get kind of teetering around the edge. Like you got the Michigan game that they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. Like even Big Joe's the game that was like kind of a much closer than I'm sure like the Blue Devil fans, the Richmond game. I mean, Richmond was just begging to win that game, and they just weren't able to pull it off. It's just the kind of way they've been playing just makes me feel like they got a lot more work to do. But again, like they're a one loss to Princeton away from being undefeated.
Duke quietly has their own formula of how they set this up. We don't kind of know it requires them to win. They can't really take more than like one loss, because that's what happened in 2022.
Yeah.
They took like 3 losses and not because they play a lot of games. And so when you play a lot of games, there's often some teams there at the bottom that sort of can add some bloat a little bit, and they're a little more at risk of potentially taking on a bad loss, which what happened in 2022. They lost like 3 games non-conference.
Yep.
And they took on several bad losses. And then what happens is that Duke needs to Duke format usually is non-con, we lose nothing or lose maybe one game. And then ACC play, basically just play it at par, play at 500. If you go look at Duke under Dino, just kind of going back, like Duke has only won the regular season ACC, which again, it's kind of tricky with the ACC. They've done it so many different ways. They've played 6 games. Sometimes they play 4 games at the conference, but Duke has only finished first in the ACC in the regular season twice in the last 10 seasons.
2021.
2021, they've tied for first, and then 2023. Otherwise, you look at their record in ACC play. Obviously, they had the first 8 years under Dino where they lost 6 ACC games in 8 years. I mean, they were killing it, and they won the ACC tournament in that stretch in 07, 08, 09 as well. But even there you go as well. Duke hasn't won the ACC tournament since 2014. Duke has not won the ACC tournament, and they haven't won. Duke has won the ACC tournament since 2012, and they haven't won. They've won 2 ACC regular season titles. So Duke in the ACC since 2015, because 2014 they went 4-1. They have lost 18 ACC games, and they're 24-18. Solid, but they play it a bit more at kind of par. Is how I would put it. It's kind of a bit of a contrast to, you remember like Cuse when they kind of came in, like they would sometimes Desco put up a couple like 4-0 in the ACC, regular season years. Notre Dame the last couple of years had some big years. So Duke dominate non-con. The ACC, you talk about the ACC. The years when the ACC is great. Play 500. Go 3-2, 2-3, maybe grab a win in the ACC tournament, lose the championship. You're set. Perfect. But in years where they kind of don't, the do as well non-con, and then maybe if the ACC is down, 2 wins, 2-3, maybe or 1-3 in ACC play, not quite as doesn't quite hold as much, grab as much weight as it would. In the past, and this year is kind of one of those where going the difference between going 2-2 and 1-3, or going 3-1, or if anyone can go 4-0, holds a lot. It matters. There's going to be a shuffling of this. That's like I mentioned with Ryan. I think that Duke Syracuse game will be really important. Those things. Look, you always kind of feel like Duke. They're going to be a favorite against Virginia, and they have obviously the streak against them, but you feel like they might be underdogs to Carolina and Notre Dame. So that Cuse game, I feel like, is going to be really important.
Oh, yeah. Cuse always, years up for Duke. Feels like that's however they're playing that season, they're going to either give a tough game or steal a win tonight. So, yeah, no, you're right. It's really important. Cuse is another one. Work to do in terms of, resume. Similar to, got the win against Hopkins, which is, nice. But, we keep talking about, messing up the formula. That Harvard loss definitely didn't help things for them. And again, Cuse, respectable non-con play, but nothing's that. You're not going to confuse their schedule with Princeton. Even though I'll give them playing Maryland outdoors, tough. But I don't know how much longer the series is going to kind of keep continuing. But I think it's a good game for Cuse to play because it's kind of like the standard bearer, and Hopkins, Harvard, Maryland, those are all really solid games. Going 1-2 in those, not ideal if you're a Cuse fan, but again, they're right there, they're good, but it's just they got stuff to do. This Colgate game, it's going to probably matter more, just given Colgate's like actually, quite a decent team and going to be
that game's going to be insane.
probably like going to be a good game. What was the penalties last game? 15, like it was like a high double digits number of penalties. I remember in that one preview. So this is just an upstate New York, just like brawl. But you go right from there and get the ACC play, and you got that like Cornell game that just like snuck right in there, between Notre Dame and Duke. So you got a stretch where a Colgate game it's got to be tough and important for Cuse to win, but also like I could see like Colgate playing to the max potential, maybe kind of pushing this game more than these. Virginia, Syracuse, kind of always just like a really tough one. But yeah, let's just say that they get those two, and then you're going Notre Dame, Cornell, Duke, North Carolina, just like a kind of a murderous row to end the season. And that's where kind of we're a little bit about Syracuse because I rightfully favored against Colgate. I think Virginia is going to be playing like just a cornered animal the rest of the season. It's just like that's not what I want to play against Lars. Because it's just the hockey game like fearing he's going to steal that one. Even though felt like this is probably his weakest team there. But still see Lars cooking up some magic. There's a lot of talent there. But yeah, like I'm saying, like that's just a tough game historically, and then you just got going right through, the end of your season with like some top 6 RPI games. So like for Syracuse, kind of similar to Hopkins, like there's definitely work to do. Right now they're bubble, not even like comfortable bubble, like kind of edge bubble. So they definitely got a lot of work to do. Army, I say got work to do. As you noted, Jake, just because of like the nature of the Patriot League, and it's just like
if they want to win if they want another path, the Carolina game is everything.
And it's weird to say resume wise they got work to do being 7-0, but it's a lightish 7-0, but number 29 not strict the schedule.
That's the thing is it's if they want two pass they got to be Carolina.
Yeah.
They need a big statement win on that skit. They need a big statement win on that. They don't have that. The UMass win is good and it's holding up weight, but unfortunately for them, Yale and Rutgers just didn't bring what you might have hoped in past years. Yale and Rutgers would bring. So you need could UMass hold up for sure? But like you need a statement win on that schedule if you're Army. And you need like there's nothing but look what they've done so far. The way they've played is great, but it's not from a resume perspective. It's not going to hold up at the end of the year if you do suffer a trip up in the Patriot League tournament. If they win the Patriot League, great. I mean, you can go 15-1. Like you're in, and the record will be sitting great on Selection Sunday, and you'll be in. But if they want the Carolina game, decides everything about whether they got one path to the tournament or 2 paths.
It's a little weird to say, but I don't think Richmond has much work to do because the only work they got to do is win the A-10 trophy.
Yeah, that's it. It's over.
They're not even desperate. Like I don't really feel like they need to feel that. They need to play. They're playing well. Like I'm not saying like they're not telling 1 goal loss to Cornell, 1 goal loss to Duke. Opening season loss game to Maryland. Like that's no sort of murder you. But like you're not getting in at large with a Virginia, and I'll give them a Georgetown win. Even if say they go regular season undefeated, then you get another St. Joe's top 20-ish win. Like
UMass too.
It's not, but yeah, you're gonna still need. Oh yeah, exactly the minute. But like you're not going to be able to use that to like catapult into a parlay into a at large bid. Like
it was right there. It was right there for them. This was the year. We've been doing this for how many years now? Since the league started, like 3 years. This was the season for it. The Big East has really. This Richmond Georgetown game is interesting because it's neither team. It's not that it doesn't matter for either team. I mean, you want to win, you want to set yourself up for them, but both those teams they know their path at this point. Yeah. Richmond Georgetown, like it's straightforward. And Georgetown, I mean, both those teams will feel comfortable. Richmond and Georgetown because they play great in the conference tournament. They play great in that at the end of the year. Georgetown, I mean, the Big East is really down.
it's a blessing and a curse for them. Like you can't.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't afford you any slip ups.
It
But
doesn't prepare you. I think like that, like not having. It's different as you see like the mid-major conferences that they go like St. Joseph's a start, the long win streaks and stuff like that. But some of the games don't prepare you for the tournament. In a Georgetown, they're good. Hey, I'm kind of fearful.
How good though, and they feel like they're a team that needs to improve. Like they need to keep getting better.
Playing tougher, yeah.
And
I just wanted to close with the point on Richmond. I feel terrible because like I can definitely see a scenario where maybe undefeated in A10 play, maybe UMass or St. Joe's lost, and then not winning, and then you're looking back at the schedule. It's just like and not being able to make the tournament. It's like it
was there. It was right. Pick any one of those Cornell and Duke games. Switch them. They are right in this conversation.
They're like
they are
7, 8. Yeah,
they are in this conversation. Heck, they could have won both of them. Honestly, they had the lead late against. They had a big lead against Cornell. They had the lead late against Duke. But take just one of them. The Duke game, obviously. I mean, just switch those two teams. Those two teams look a lot. I mean, you could almost kind of flip flop those two teams if Richmond won that game. Yep. The Cornell game would have been massive. You could be Cornell. It was right there for them. And again, especially because the last couple of years it's just been St. Joe's in that conference. Now you got UMass as well. So you got two teams. They got Georgetown again coming after it. That potentially you could hold on to it. So they would have been right in this thing. The upshot, you could say, is whoever comes out of that league is going to be a brutal first round draw for some team in that kind of 4, 5, 6 seed range. Like, man, it's going to be tough to play that team in a first round game. UMass, this looks like the best team Cannell has had in maybe since the last made the tournament in 2018. That team they're playing really, really solid ball ever since they lost to Army. That was their last L they took, and kind of classic UMass team. Great defense. Got back up in the top 10. St. Joe's, kind of making themselves under Ray this year as a defensive first team. Great defense, goalie plays after a lot. They kind of struggled with goalie play a year ago, but kind of remember St. Joe's as when they had all the guys on offense and with Zach Cole at faceoff. This is a different team. It's the St. Joe's team now, really led by Levi Virch on the defensive end. I mean, they got some athletes on that defensive end. They can play with you, and they got goalie play is much improved for them. And their offense is still, even despite all they lost, considering all they lost, their offense is still pretty solid. I mean, it's close to the top 25. So, and then Richmond, and we've seen the way they've played. They're good enough to be in a game with anybody. I mean, the Maryland game is different, but the Maryland game they didn't have Jared Chenoy at the faceoff dot, which is that was a big factor.
First game of the season.
First road game. Maryland.
They beat Maryland. I think, Maryland's Maryland, but really, legitimately could be 7-1.
Three of their losses are to teams ranked. Their losses are to teams ranked 1st, 4th, and 7th in the media poll, and all of their losses are to teams if you look RPI in the top 5.
That's it. That's it. RPI. I think it's like 2, 4, 5 according to that's just.
And again, media poll. They lost the number 1 team. They lost the number 1 team, the number 4 team, and the number 7 team. In IL, number 1, number 1, number 4, number 8. U.S. coaches poll, number 1, number 3, number 7. He lost the 3 top, and 2 of those were 1-goal games.
Yeah, we would have been talking about Richmond the way we talked about Princeton, before the Cornell loss. Just like.
No, they'd be really genuinely in this thing. And and all we'd be talking about is, man, St. Joe's and UMass, like they got to get through if St. Joe's and UMass can beat Richmond, Richmond's sitting right there on selection Sunday, and it sucks, man. It sucks. It's really bummed me out ever since I started because this was the year with the way the Big East fell off, and there was an opening there, and just the way they've played, the way these teams have hung on, the way the A-10s improved as well. It's the fourth best conference this year. I think you could argue in some ways, at least just taking the top three teams, because it's the Patriot League. It's such a different league. It's but if you took the top three teams in that league, the top three teams in the Patriot League are probably Army, Navy's hard. People forget now. Navy dominated BU. And then they lost all their face-off guys to turned to a MASH unit. BU maybe Colgate. I don't. That's the thing with the Patriots. I think Army's great, but after that, I think they got a couple good teams kind of hovering on the top 20. Richmond, UMass, St. Joe's. Richmond definitely top 10. St. Joe's and UMass feel like they're kind of bombing. I think if you took their top three, I think it's probably better than the Patriot Leagues. I guess maybe Army's the kind of different because Army's so, looks so strong. It's definitely better than the Big East. It's not even close. I don't even know who honestly, I don't know who the second and third best team in the Big East is.
No, it's like they're so tight. It's like a cross country. If this was a cross country race, and you've got they'd be the second best conference. Kind of just in terms of it's a little bit unfair because I'm only taking those three, and then you compare them with conference wide for everybody else. Average RPI, they would probably be the second best conference if you only took those three.
That's not fair. Yeah, if you took those three, though, you average their media poll rank, it'd be for us, it'd be 50 divided by 3. That's 16th.
Yeah, right under 16th.
So that's 16th. That's their
our guys 12, 13, and 14.
That's their top three. The Big Ten top 3 is Maryland, Penn State, Hopkins. So that's 16 divided by 3. So the Big Ten's obviously stronger. ACC top 3 is Carolina, Duke, Notre Dame. That's 18, and then so that's 6. And then if you took top 3 from our poll in the Ivy is Cornell, Princeton, Harvard. So that's 19. That kind of tells you how close stacked up everything else is. The top 3 in the Big Ten, ACC, Ivy is identical. From there, though, it's a gap. Yeah, we got Army 6. Army's ranked 6th. The next best team in the Patriot League we have is BU.
Lehigh. I'm sorry. I'm going PR. Okay, you're going.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to media poll. I'm just going to media poll. Yeah, because Lehigh's 2 and whatever. Shout out to Lehigh though. High strength of schedule. I'm looking. BU is 18th. Army is 6th. They're 24th. Then we got Colgate. We'll say 21st because they're getting they got receiving votes. So that'd be 21, 39, 45. Yeah, A-10's right there. I think they're top 3. I think it's the 4th best conference this year, pretty clearly. Whoever comes out of there is going to be a really tough first round. For whoever they play. And look, I'll say that is maybe that's at least one. The strength of the league, at least in-house this year, the strength of the league maybe gets them off of a line. Yeah. We take where they've been is last year St. Joe's went to UVA, and granted, UVA was a 6, but that was a different. UVA is a 6 is a bit of a different beast. But Richmond had to go to Penn, who was a 3. Richmond's had to go to Duke, who was a 2. If you can maybe get yourself this year to a 6 seed, you feel. I think the further you go down this year, granted, I don't know. That's what we talk about. Is there really a difference? Past, is it how much of a difference would be between 2 and 8, maybe, or 3 and 8? Who knows? But I do think this year, if this A10 champ got to a team lower ranked in the top 10 on the road, they would feel very confident in chances. So finishing this one up, teams who are desperate, the Cavaliers. They're the big one. Yale basically Yale needs finish top in the Ivy, need to go get at least 3 Ivy wins to get into the Ivy League tournament. 2 and 4 probably doesn't. If you want to feel safe, you probably need to go 3 and 3 in Ivy play. So Dartmouth, Brown, but Dartmouth could be tricky. Dartmouth's in our top 20. Penn as well. Yale's got Cornell this weekend. So that's the thing for Yale is the way the schedule played out for them. Tough opening after their tough non-con. I think they're getting better, but the schedule just keeps getting tougher. Which doesn't make it easy. And then I would say Denver kind of in there, but desperate. Need to win the Big East. Need to turn around in Big East. Figure some things out face-off goalie wise, because that feels just not a situation you want to put yourself in. Like you look at the Big East. You got Villanova ranks 11th in adjusted face-off efficiency. Marquette ranks 14th. Georgetown's 28th. If you're Denver, that doesn't feel like a big weakness you want to have in some of these games. So you need to figure something out. Settle on a goalie, Denver. They've been doing 2 goalies, so everyone these games. You need to be in as good a position as you can be for the Big East tournament. You need a goalie. And then I think the last 2, Michigan and Rutgers. It's a Big Ten tournament or bust. And the thing with the Big Ten is, you mentioned it, it'd be great if they went 0-5. The Big Ten's too tough, man. Who's like 0-5 is that's Rutgers. Ryan was talking about when Rutgers played Princeton. The Rutgers defense played pretty well against Princeton. And Rutgers also has a great faceoff man, Matthew Palletto. And they got a great goalie in Carden Stoller who saved 60%. But we're talking about pass to an upset. Rutgers at least can win faceoffs and they can get saves. Now, the offensive end is the big question mark there. Their offense is 51st in offensive efficiency. But Big Ten, we talk about leagues. The Big Ten these games turn into rock fights. The games become defensive, and a team that can get a team that wins faceoffs and gets saves in Big Ten play is always going to have a shot at second round. It's how Ohio State, even some of these bad years, has played close 1-goal games.
Yeah,
in Big Ten play. Yeah, exactly. Michigan feels like one who you gotta lick your wounds after that Notre Dame loss. And they also have injuries that the face-off dot. I do think their defense is good. I think it's had some really good games. The Notre Dame game, well, one of them. But they've had some, good performances. They at least have the confidence of knowing they can do it, the Big Ten tournament path, which is obviously there. But it's a lot different team, different season.
I was thinking about this every weekend. The way everything is stacked up and like how Big Ten, Ivy to an extent, not to an extent, but Ivy for sure. And they see like they're a little bit top heavy. I got 3 teams that are kind of like logging up the top 10 and 11. Could we see a Brown 2022 team emerge like from the depths of in conference play?
I just don't
really. I always remember like Brown had like 3 weeks that just messed up the entire college lacrosse world.
It's the craziest 3 week of all time.
Through the ACC.
No, I don't think so. Just because one, I mean, The team would be Virginia. Oh, I'll change that. The team would be Virginia.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Virginia's the team. If Virginia's just somehow Virginia can turn their season around, if they could win, do it in ACC play. I don't know if anyone can do it in Big Ten play because Michigan and Rutgers, you'd have to like what's their I don't see that. But even still, you'd need like Michigan would have to beat Maryland this week. And then they would have to Michigan after that, after they play Maryland, they are at Hopkins. They have to beat Maryland, Hopkins, and Penn State back to back to back. Big Ten's just too. Big Ten's just it's tough, too tough, man. I just don't see that happening. And it's if you're Rutgers or Michigan, you beat each other. It's not the same as what Brown pulled off. That Brown thing is amazing. In hindsight, they hosted Virginia that year.
Yeah.
And they hosted the Ivy League. They hosted the Ivy League tournament.
Brown shook up the world.
It's like what's that John Reed? What's that John Reed book? What is it? 10 Days That Shook the World, the Russian Revolution. Someone should do that about Brown. 3 weeks that shook the world in Providence.
The Brown Bear story.
Brown.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Penn, Yale, Cornell. Just bang, bang, bang. It was
insane the way they did it too. Like they were
after getting smoked by Princeton, 17-9.
They lost to Harvard. They lost to UMass. They lost 3 games in a row. They lost to Harvard. They lost by 3 goals to UMass at home, and they got smoked by Princeton. And they were 5-4. It was like no one was thinking about Brown. And then they beat Penn. They blow out. They beat Yale by 7. That's when we first. That was the genesis of the Yale defense.
That's where it started.
And they beat Cornell. I was like, yeah, it all changed right there. Yeah, and Brown went 4-2 in Ivy play. And Cornell went 4-2 as well, and then they both lost. And I think Yale and Penn was the.
Yeah, did all that, lost in first round of Penn at home.
and Princeton just sat at home. Princeton just sat at home rested.
There's that Hoagie Haven Ryan spot that he loves. Princeton just grab a couple subs, watch the game.
Oh man, yeah, it would be Virginia. Virginia would be the team.
What a crazy year.
Oh, that was nuts. I think it's gonna get crazy here next week. Not to the same degree. And again. We know again that was the curious. Like, yeah, a team came out of nowhere. I don't think this is. I don't see that this year. I think we know the teams involved. It's all the teams we just mentioned. It's going to be some combo of these teams, pretty much all baked in. 2 of them probably get left at the altar. But how it all shapes up is going to be, significant. Yeah, if one of Ohio State or Hopkins does go 4-1 in the Big Ten, that'd be unlikely. That vaults their season dramatically where they can go. If Syracuse goes 3-1 or 4-0 in the ACC, that 3-1 in the ACC with the Cornell game there, that's huge. Carolina's sitting great now. Imagine if they go 3-1 in the ACC, we have the Army game. Conversely, if you go 1-3 and your only win's Virginia, that's a lot different. Princeton, they have a high floor for like their floor is great. They've made it like they're they've made it really far up the apartment. But that elevator could get you lose to Harvard. You're 0-2 in Ivy play. That elevator can get stuck a little bit. Then you got at Penn, home to Yale the last 2 weeks. It's will they make that? You're putting yourselves a little in A quagmire. He's definitely a pothole. You know, you got to change. You got to change the tire. You know, like they were basically like Princeton's on a road trip, and they're just making great time. They're like, man, we are just going. We're halfway there. And if they do lose to Harvard, you know, it's like, man, you know, it's got stuff in traffic. You got to wait out the storm. You know, maybe we have to get a motel. You know, it changes the dynamic a little bit. They'd be 4-3. Which it'd be, you know, the best 4-3 team in the college lacrosse, but you know,
no, it's right, and I mean that Dartmouth game is no gimme.
Yeah, again at Penn, home DL, end of the year.
Yeah, I think this Harvard game's like that very important to them. More probably, I don't want to say more important than
it's more important for Harvard
to win.
Harvard. Talk about, I mean, a month that shook up your season. If Harvard beats Syracuse and Princeton, and doesn't lose, yeah, I mean that's significant for Harvard. And when we talk about this, and this is big, what happens if any of these teams do take a hit? What if you lose to Michigan or Rutgers? What if you lose if Virginia? What if Virginia falls off, but then snipes somebody at the end? Kind of like remember when Carolina used to do that with Reshi? Like they just get somebody in like the last weekend of ACC play.
Last year, yeah.
You know, you never
almost got Duke enough that they
Duke almost missed the ACC tournament.
Goal differential was actually
it felt like Duke realized it like right at the end.
Like, someone just announced a note, and he's like,
someone passing Dino a note, like, "Hey, buddy, like Dino, like you know, we need to score some goals here."
And I'm talking about the point spread. What do you mean I'm not getting into the tournament?
Like, how many we need?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, it was crazy.
Yeah, Caputo just whispers in his ear, like Andy Card. Can't lose by this much.
Brendan, come over here. Take a look at this. Oh man. Save Georgetown, Harvard, Army, or not Georgetown, Harvard. That'd be a good game. Georgetown, Richmond, Army, BU are appetizers this week. Any thoughts on these games?
You know, the Army BU one is just weird just because of like Army's like inability to beat BU those last 4 games. But just Army's just destroying teams. Like again, we talked enough in our previous segment about like, you know, the record is what the record is. But like doing what you're supposed to do in those games and not just like skating by is also impressive.
Yes.
And they're just stepping on your throat and never like the team who's done the best against them in terms of scoring is UMass with 9. Like 3-3, 4-5, 4-4. Those are the only goals that they've given up the rest of the way. And like, you know, we talk a little bit about like their strength and schedule, but you know, Army beating these teams is kind of the reason why, you know, maybe these teams have bad, you know, season, you know, because, you know, there's all those, but like, you know, Rutgers, a Big Ten team with 3 goals, Yale with that offense, only 3 goals, like Lehigh's a competent team.
In the shot clock era.
Yeah, that's the thing. Shot clock era, like, it's not like Army's destroying them with faceoffs like 60, 75%. They're essentially winning by 50% throughout the year and adjusted faceoff efficiency. You know, did really well against Yale, and Mercer got 63 and 76%. But the rest of the way, like not like that. Rutgers game, that's the craziest thing about the Rutgers game. They were -9 in possessions and held Rutgers to 3 goals. That's
choked them.
You know, but Lehigh similarly -8 possessions, held them to 4 goals. Like Lehigh won 73% of the faceoffs in that game. So just like, you know, the defense efficiency, like the worst game is, as we know, is UMass with 22.6% defense efficiency. The rest of the way essentially is like single digits. And again, in the shot clock era, it really is remarkable what they're doing. just the fact that BU just seems to have their number the last few years, like 4 games in a row, like, that's not inconsequential. But yeah, I just want to see them do what they're doing to a BU. It's not like, holding Yale and Rutgers to, like, teams from, major conferences to 6 schools combined isn't impressive. But like, it's like, BU's like a, more than decent, like, we say like the wins against replacement. They're a replacement level offense. 26% offensive efficiency rank. Defense is actually better than it was last year at 18%. And like, this is a team that again, conference play, and a team that's like had your number for a little bit. I think Army doing what they have been doing to everyone else against BU. I feel like, okay, yeah, this is like a legit team. Army, I don't see like a second half swoon out of them, and winning the rest of the way, and potentially be able to give North Carolina a run for its money at the end of the season. Maybe it that's enough for them to be like at-large bulletproof. If something catastrophic happens in the Patriot League playoffs. But that's kind of what's the main thing. With just what I want to see from Army. It's just like, can they do what they've been doing defensively against a BU team that's kind of had a number these last 4 years? And if they are able to do that, then I think like they're going to be in business the rest of the way. The Georgetown Richmond game, like, I don't want to downplay it just because we've said enough about Richmond. But
I'm intrigued by Georgetown. This, I think, is a test for this. Richmond is seasoned. At this point.
I was going to say
Georgetown
is more. Georgetown's about Big East or bust, but Georgetown needs to, I think, just to put them back into a conversation as like a team on the national level, like 26 RPI, like
they're hanging, like they're in 13. Like, how much better has Georgetown gotten since we saw them against Notre Dame? Because that Notre Dame game, they played pretty. They almost pulled the formula off again from the year before. Long possessions. Their defense played great, packed in against taking away Jake Taylor inside. I imagine they'll probably use a similar format against guys like Littlejohn, Merklinger, kind of some Richmond's is a lot of team loves to go inside in the crease. I imagine Richmond will play some packed in defense, or Georgetown will play packed in defense there. But a Georgetown team appears to be built on face-off, goalie play. Look at Richmond. They are themselves back with Trinoy back, a good face-off team. Even face-off play has actually been a little ordinary. It looked like Ross Prince started hot his first 3 games against Loyola, Hopkins, and Penn. But 2 of those, Loyola and Penn, you're like bad face-off teams. Since then, 42% against Brown, 52% against Albany, 45% against High Point. Georgetown's not turning the ball over a lot, but man, they don't shoot well. And yeah, how much has Georgetown since that Notre Dame game? Brown, the High Point, they did put up a nice. They kind of exploded now. They had late with a big kind of push and goals, which is nice to see. Encouraging. Shot 41% in that game. Where is on Georgetown? It's really stark. I mean, their wins to losses. I mean, and some of that's part of it's the teams to a degree they've played, but the offense really falls off 33.5% to 25%. Defense efficiency jumps almost 10%. Face-offs fall 13%. Yeah, where's Georgetown at? I think we have them ranked 13th, but they feel like the team that most is almost just ranked due to their preseason ranking. They haven't, how much have they moved at all compared to, where do we have them ranked preseason? Eleven. So they're 13th.
Yep, 11.
So if you look at their ranking by each week, week 1 we had them ranked 9th. Week 2, they fell to 14th. Week 3, they were 12th. Week 4, they were 10th, 10th, 13th, 13th. They've been in this spot right there. They've been in that 10 to 14 range the entire season. Whereas we've seen Hopkins has fallen back, but they did make a leap up. Syracuse started very high, fell down, maybe starting to climb again at the Hopkins win. Harvard's obviously jumped above. Ohio State's jumped a lot. Duke is another team that feels very. We've had them just fixed there for a while in that 7th spot. But it feels like Duke, we have a better idea with some of the teams they've played. They played that Princeton game. Where's Georgetown at? I think this is a game that kind of tells us a little bit. They're going to be the favorite in the Big East either way. But if they lose this game, if the offense really struggles, I think you're right in terms of like the national landscape. I think they're going to fall off. And they're going to be considered just. I think they'll kind of lose. I think right now there's still a bit of, as deserved, kind of respect for Georgetown as a program. This team has made the quarterfinals 3 of the last 4 years. They haven't made the quarter, so it's kind of seen as we expect them to find their way there. Though we expect them to be in the tournament, we expect them to by the end of, because we've seen this in them before. They've kind of started slow and then they find themselves throughout the year and they're in position to win a first round game, get to the quarterfinals. I think if they lose this game, there's a bit of, I don't know. And then, like, are you ever going to get it back with the way the Big East is? I think this will tell us more about what Georgetown's at. Army BU. Those 2 games last year, the Army played. Because Army this year, the one thing I'm kind of watching for is they turn the ball over a lot on offense. Their offense played well, but like if you look at their, in just their, we'll look at unadjusted numbers. They're 20th in offensive efficiency. Their turnover rate isn't terrible. I mean, it's 24th, but they have some really high turnover. They tend to have high turnover games. Lehigh, a lot. Rutgers game. I'm just kind of looking, even just the raw numbers. Lehigh turned it over 16 times. That game. The 12 against Lafayette, against Holy Cross, they were at 14. Merce, big turn of 17. Like they've turned the ball over quite a bit in some of these games, and their offense is, again, it's solid, but it definitely lags a bit behind their defense. Obviously, even to a degree, it's going to lag behind where their defense at. And if you look at, like, they clear it at 92%. So a lot of these turnovers are coming at the offensive end of the field. They're not, turnovers inflicted based off, like this thing. Like you look at, it's kind of just a neat sort of like side by side. Look at the teams in clearing percentage. Shout out the military academies. VMI and Army 1-2. VMI clearing at 93%. Army at 92. Safe. I think we should say it. Love seeing teams in the 90s in clearing after last year. That kind of the clearing epidemic.
It's a national security issue.
Syracuse, 92%. Richmond, 91%. Maryland, 91%. Ohio State, 90%. Safe. I'm sure you love seeing this. Hopkins at 90%. Clearing. So these are the best clearing.
That Dwayne Wade gif.
Now let's look at turnovers per game. 3 of the top 5 in clearing are also 3 of the top 4 in fewest turnovers per game. Syracuse, 12.5. Princeton, 12.8. Maryland, 13.7. VMI, 8th at 14 turnovers per game. Those are like the top clearing teams. Much lower. Army, meanwhile, in turnovers per game is down at 40th. They have 17 turnovers per game. A lot of turnovers on the offensive end of the field. So that's what I'm kind of watching in terms of their offense. And this is something that we talk about, beating how you play, just taking care, like dominating is great. That's one thing that maybe doesn't hurt you as much against a weaker schedule. Is stuff like turnovers and wasting possessions, especially if your face-off man, we'll see with Coletti, didn't play against. Maybe it was just kind of giving him a bit of a break because they got a schedule coming up here. Maybe it was just a kind of nagging injury. But if you've got your face-off man's a little banged up, and you kind of lose that, kind of security blanket, the face-off, you start turning the ball over. That's where things can become a problem for you offensively. If you really start wasting, that's where the possession disparity you were talking about, differential, that can really catch up with you. And they don't shoot the ball great. They're 51st in shooting percentage, only shoot 28%. So just kind of things to monitor in terms of being maybe prone to an upset for this Army team. When BU got them last year, 2 of Army's 3 worst games offensively last year were against BU. I mean, all of Army, it was interesting for a team that was, it's kind of, I guess, told you the way the Army couldn't rely on their defense last year, because their defense last year in adjusted defense efficiency was 29.4%, much lower for Army than in previous years. Again, their defense, they ranked last year 34th in defensive efficiency. 2022 they were 40th, but this is a team that's ranked 5th, 11th, 17th, 12th, 1st, 3rd, 4th. It's Army. Last year they weren't able to win games in which their offense didn't play well. They couldn't really rely on their defense. Last year, their 3 worst offensive games, BU, and the Colgate game, they lost all of them. This year, you figure they should be able to, again, rely on that defense more. But that 14-9 loss to BU, shot 20%, only got 6 saves. And in the 1-goal loss to BU where they lost 11-10, that one, another one, shot 22%. Didn't shoot well in either BU game. This something maybe comes up. I don't know, but just kind of things maybe worth kind of looking at with them, that this stuff might catch up with you more in a way against a tougher opponent than it wouldn't. All right, so Big Ten play begins this weekend. Transition there. What are how you feeling?
Our time of year, Jake. And we love lacrosse. Love all the conferences. We have our jokes with ACC, but we love them. It's like
we love lacrosse.
Yeah, we love good lacrosse. But Big Ten play from the beginning of the pod, it almost kind of coincided with the start of Big Ten. I always remember Jake, but new listeners. Jake was the first comment on the very first post I ever did on SB Nation. And that article still stands the test of time. It was Maryland will never, ever go back to ACC, and they won't want to. It's essentially what the article was like. We nothing but green pastures ahead. And once Maryland went to ACC, and I remember Jake was just like, "This is actually good." I love the comment. Brian told me about you, but I was like, from then on, 2015, like Big Ten Sundays, all the shenanigans that happen at Big Ten games. So me and you going to the Hopkins legendary, just the execution game by Maryland in the season. The glove gate, the Tillman, there's everything. It's just
Tams turning the tanker a couple years ago.
It's all of it. It's just like everyone's got their own personalities, their own playing stuff. But whenever and that's where I think our points about the difference between ACC play this year may be different because this year, I think they're going to go after each other next because they have to. But before in years past, because of dominating non-con play, it just like was like it's a gentlemanly. I always said talk about that. Not Ferrari. Who's the other? Yeah, no, Ferrari. With Adam Driver. They made a movie about.
Ferrari, yeah.
But there's a part where he's talking about like what he wants of the drivers, and he was just like, you guys are all scholarly like gentlemen, I want killers, he's just like we're talking about one driver or the other one. It's like he knows you're gonna let up because like you have a family, he's like that guy's just gonna go. And he's like you're gonna let up and he's gonna get that corner over. I gotta find that line and I'll put it in our DMs. There's like, but that is what Big Ten play is like. It is like. Kind of vicious, like Connor got a little bit of trouble 2 seasons ago where he was just like, we're not playing like this, like nice lacrosse, like Big Ten's like rip your face off lacrosse.
Yeah, that was silly. But there's heat and there's kind of enmity in these games that's developed. And I think that's what you like, but there's a degree of definitely it's the nature of the games, how they're played. They are more defensive. They're very physical. That's a big part of it.
I was saying hop escape. I mean, how many times was there in a full real brawl like that?
Yes, and then you have that. You've had game where it's really gotten. The chippiness kind of turned over the edge. The way they've and this was kind of disappoints me this year is just the only one Sunday night game. And like a couple years ago they did a lot of Saturday night games. So I remember there was that one year where one weekend a couple years ago where like every game went to overtime.
Oh yeah.
And they had and one of them was Sunday night, one of them was Saturday night. There was one of them was Friday. The way they kind of spaced it out. This year, the TV windows are not as optimized, I would say, but they did a really good job. The product way of optimizing kind of standalone games, so the games felt big. Even if the game itself wasn't always big, they did a good job, and the kind of stakes added to that. It's different, but there's a feeling with these games that there's some. Between the teams, there's some heat, and there's tension that gets ratcheted up by being real stakes. Hopkins the first year was kind of made that run through, won the things around Michigan, obviously the last couple of years. So there's good. It's great theater. You've got. Maryland obviously is kind of sort of back on their last couple of years, kind of back on their kind of position as at the top, and that's kind of been a constant theme with the league. It feels like is someone always trying to knock Maryland off, and when they're able to do that, it's significant. Like Penn State Maryland, for example, that game we'll see that could be like a number 1 versus number 2 game. I mean, Penn State's number 2 in the media poll. If they beat Ohio State, that's gonna be a tough game though. But if they could, like Penn State, what their record against Maryland, and just kind of a bit of kind of Sisyphus a little bit.
Yeah.
State for Maryland, they've only beat them I think twice in Big Ten play with TAMS, but they've had several other games where it feels like they should have done more often. And of course, the year they did do it with in 2019, it was a statement. Like it was a big, they jumped on them in that game.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget. I didn't watch that game, live. I didn't get to see it. But I remember I actually like picked up the newspaper. I actually looked at the newspaper. I was away from my phone. So I remember I saw the score in the Sun. I saw Ed Lee. Shout out Ed Lee. I saw Ed Lee's article. I saw in the Sun. I'm like,
Now you get to watch it in post. You're like,
open it up, and it's
on a metro, just like Maryland.
It's like Penn State got up 8-1 against Maryland. I'm like, pardon? So Yeah, that was definitely. And this year again, I think. Look, Maryland hasn't beaten Michigan in 3 years. That's crazy. Maryland hasn't had that kind of. They've had it against Hopkins a little bit, but that's you kind of expect that with that rivalry. Michigan's had their number. It's 3 in a row. Going for 4. Maryland's only lost 4 in a row during Tillman, I think, to one team. I think it's Notre Dame, who beat them 4 in a row at one point. From Maryland at the end of that one year they crossed over in the ACC to the non-complete 4 in a row. Hopkins maybe got them 3. A couple points Petro, they got them 3 times. I don't think they ever got them 4.
Exactly. Yeah.
So 4 in a row against Maryland, Michigan would be unbelievable, and it would really just kind of put a jolt back in Michigan's season. For Maryland, I can tell you, bulletin board material, all that stuff. Who knows what that kind of means? They definitely want to. They remember. They know. If you're unless you're. I don't think there's anybody in Maryland who played on that, except Big Mac. It's who played on that 22 team.
I think McNaney.
Yeah, so Spanos was who redshirted. He was scout team. Colin Burlace is senior. I don't think he played though much. So if you're a Maryland player, you could be experienced Maryland player, junior. Look, you haven't beaten Michigan. That for Maryland, that's not supposed to work that way at Maryland. Penn State, Ohio State. I mean, this is the kind of class between which we're excited about. Panzer Sunday night. Should be a great atmosphere. Always is. I hope Penn State has the guys back at attack. Because if it can, this would be a great strength-on-strength matchup. Penn State's offense has played really well this year. You've got Matt Traynor with Bobby Van Buren. You got Hunter Aquino, who's really stepped up from the midfield for Penn State. This Ohio State defense is playing tremendous. They've got athletes at short stick D-midi. Langemar's been there a while, but Blake Island, they moved him from off. They've kind of taken some of the offensive guys they had, Ari Allen, Blake Island, and they've moved them back to D-mid because their offenses, they found some different guys from the portal on offense. They've been able to put some of those athletes they had last year at offense and put them at D-mid. And Ohio State's got a really athletic, physical rope unit, which would be interesting to see them match up against a good Penn State midfield group with Jack Amon, transfer from Rutgers, Hunter Aquino, some of the guys that they have. That could be a great strength on strength for Penn State offense. Again, if they don't have the injuries, it could be tough scoring for Penn State against Ohio State's teams. Conversely, Penn State's defense really rock solid. They've got the face-off play that's really made a big improvement from this year. Ohio State, I think it's impressive that what they've been able to do, even with good face-off play, but not great. Ohio State always feels like whenever Ohio State's great, they have great elite face-off play. Inacio was Withers way back in the day. This Ohio State's kind of been able to do without it. But look, these are Ohio State's type of games usually. You expect the physicality, a little more scoring. This should be a great one. And then Hopkins Rutgers. Where's that one? I'd say Homewood or
Homewood.
Oh yeah. So if you're Hopkins, look back home for the first time in 2 weeks. Hopkins this is always a key part of their season, like getting over that Navy hump.
Yeah.
Which that game was. We saw Navy against Lemoyne. It took them a bit to get over that hump last night. I mean, that game, of course, coming off that stretch, Hughes, and for Hopkins, you mentioned it. Can't afford any slip ups. Certainly need big wins, but can't afford any slip ups. And Rutgers is going to be desperate for a big win. They need it. So yeah, there's definitely some intrigue in all these games.
Big one in Jersey, though, Jake.
You going?
I just talked myself into it. I think this is the best matchup game. The one with the highest. Yeah. this one. Well, maybe either stay the run for the. That'd be good because I just run Sunday because the Ohio State game's late, so I can do the bigger on Sunday. The shout out Jersey City Marathon in a few weeks. So I gotta get ready for that. I'm excited. So I think this is going to be a fireworks type of game, like two teams that have some serious offensive power. I think Harvard's coming into this one, can bang a little bit more. Like, the trio of King, Malone, and Spidell, were, absolutely like hammering 48 goals combined. Sam King leading the way with 23 goals and 13 assists. I just really like how they play. I really love what they were able to do in that Michigan game. Was 18, 19 point outburst, but still able to pour in 14. And what was kind of like a tough sledding. Michigan would kind of claw back a little bit, and then Harvard would build up the lead again. And I thought it was like a really important game for them. But Princeton, I love Coulter, but still feel a little bit like there's something more in the tank in there for the team offensively. Just like Colin Burns. I like it. It's Maxey's a hit for sure. So yes. But outside of him, I feel like I felt like with Hopkins, I was like, everyone's good, but no one's like that apex. But they do have an apex guy in Coulter. I still feel like I'm waiting for the Nate Kabiri game, or Palumbo, it's been clutch and leads the team and assists with 10.
I really like Tucker Wade. I think he's from the midfield. I like that midfield. I think that midfield needs to be more. Everybody keys on McAsee, really. That's where everyone of those teams are focusing, and it needs to be Kabiri. At the beginning of the year, I was thinking it was going to be Kabiri. Like if teams focus on McAsee, they need to get a Kabiri stick more. I don't know. You're saying I'm waiting for the big game. I haven't seen it. I don't. Sophomore slump maybe. Burns has played well, but if not that, I think they need that midfield. They got a lot of guys in that midfield that can bang. And Palumbo can pass. I think they need to get the ball in that midfield stick more. Let those guys go at it and free McAsee up. Let McAsee play off ball a little more.
I was going to say I think the world of McAsee is really good, but I don't like when he has the ball. I want him just to have it it hit bang,
yes.
just step down or maybe off of a pick or just a skip pass to him, and it's just I'm not the most confident with him and trying to dodge or trying to, and not that he can't, but I feel like that's not his. In case his comparative advantage, economic terms, McAsee is going to put that ball in the back of the net. I don't need him to, initiate the offense.
He doesn't need to be dodging. He's not Owen Duffy. No. It's a different thing. And also, I don't know if he passes as well out of double teams. When they send that quick double, and it's just teams are focusing on him. He's getting all the attention. I think they need to find other ways to get the ball in guys, because that's when that offense is great. You guys mentioned with Mitchell, when the ball is moving, they have so many guys who can hurt you. That's when it needs to be at its better. And it feels like it's getting a little bogged down a little bit. He needs to be like, oh, you said off a pass, get it off a pass, dodge, get a pick dot, or just shoot. I mean, that's his thing, But when the ball's in his stick a lot, you're right. No, I think it slows it down a little bit. If
they could get another. Because someone who can actually be more of a dodger or initiator, to draw that, and I'm not saying he's going to have a Logan season, Wisnowski's season, but you know what I mean. It's I think that's where he's really lethal, just just coming at you, to skip pass, bang, or just coming off a screen and can get that pass and bury it. But yeah, I said, I'm just not loving when he's initiating and having the ball in his hands. So conversely, Sam King, I was all the time with his head. He's a really dynamic player. Really opens up, leading the team and goals and assists. That offense is really fun to watch, and I think it's going to be for people, watch me jinx it, and it's going to be a 9-8 pitcher's duel, but. I feel like it'll be a game that's really fun. I'm feeling a lot it could be like that Cornell Princeton game that was that last year.
Mhm.
It's just like absolutely sudden death, like blow to the Princeton fans. I'm just crestfallen. Oh my god! But it was really exciting. It was just like both teams like had the momentum. Like there was the counterattacks, like pushes, like but it was just but one team like surges ahead a little bit. Like it was really like exciting. It's fun. This lacrosse is like really, and the crowd's like getting really into it. I think we're going to be a great crowd because Harvard's playing really well. There's obviously Princeton probably be the majority of the fans there, but like games I have gone to 1952 Stadium, like there's always a sizable presence of the teams that have seen like have large fan bases. Cornell, it's a lot of alums and fans, and Jersey, Maryland, Maryland and it's so close to Jersey. There's a lot of Terp people around here, but I could see a nice decent Harvard showing, and I think you can get like really kind of a little testy a little bit because like these teams are like Princeton's coming off of a loss. Harvard's kind of like I said, like I didn't want to say that they're sitting pretty, but they're looking attractive. They're standing attractive. They're not sitting pretty, like we said at the beginning, but like they're standing attractive. So for them to like now really get that house money, they get that Princeton win. Now it's just like totally changes the dynamic of the season. It's like not just like we're hoping for a tournament appearance. It's like we're hoping for a tournament run. If they can get a Princeton win, because that just breeds more and more confidence. So, I think I just talked myself into going to this game. So, I'm really excited. It's going to be fun. I'm leaning Princeton just because we've been on the Tigers bandwagon, but I'm really starting to like this Harvard team.
Yeah, I guess that kind of leads us into pick 'em. I guess we'll start with this one. Harvard Princeton. Where are you leaning?
I'm going Princeton. I can't believe it now. I'm going Princeton. I picked them last weekend and they lost. But pretty much every other game I picked them, they won. Oh, no, I picked them against Maryland. That was a bad idea. But I did pick them against Penn State and they won that one. So, all right, I'm going with it. I'm sticking with the Tigers. Money Mitch, Big Mads. Yeah, I'm going with the Tigers.
Yeah, I think this game feels like we shootout for sure, but there's going to be a period in the game where, kind of make it like a tennis analogy, you're going to need to break serve. It's going to be, we've seen Harvard kind of late in the second half, when the offense has slowed down a little bit, their defense has been able to carry them through. It feels like there's going to be one of those periods where the scoring slows down. Maybe there's a 7-8 minute period, and someone is going to be able to someone is going to need to string like 2 goals together. When their defense is finally getting stops, you're going to need to score on the other end. And I don't know. I think I'd maybe trust Princeton's defense a little more to get those stops. And I kind of look at Harvard's offense, the way Harvard's offense has had these, the second half, the way the scoring slowed a little bit against Michigan and Yale. I feel like if that happens against Princeton's offense will take advantage in a way that Michigan and Yale were not able to. But look, this game is also, conversely, maybe Princeton could string with Craddock and goal, be able to string saves. I really like Graham Stevens. I think he makes big saves, but he does have a tendency to also kind of sometimes let some in. Which Craddock he's had one kind of maybe bad game. Overall, he's been really, really good for him. So maybe that's what kind of I lean Princeton. I think there's gonna be a moment in the game, 7-8 minutes, where someone's gonna need to kind of, when your defense again stops, you're gonna need to put some goals in and kind of maybe like get that 2 or 3 goal run to break it apart. And I feel like I trust Princeton a little more to do that. So I'll go with the Tigers, and they're at home.
Yeah, That's what I thought it rated for me. Jake, the Spiders are traveling to the Swamp to play Georgetown. Who you got?
I'm gonna take the Hoyas. Part of that being on the Richmond train a little bit. And they just haven't, they burned me enough times. But I don't know. This feels like a spot where Warren kind of rallies the troops a little bit. And we've seen Georgetown, these kind of gut check. We want to learn a little bit more Georgetown. They seem to pull through. This feels like it's not a super key spot, but I feel like they maybe need this one a little bit for preparing into Big East play. And I just like this. I kind of trust Georgetown in this spot, maybe a little bit more than I do Richmond. And that's why I'll go with the Hoyas. It's kind of a gut feel. Yeah.
I'm with you on that, and I was kind of similar. Like I feel like Richmond is probably going to be in it. Like it's probably maybe like a kind of a game where they're not going to feel like we're going to have to score 13, 14 points to beat them. Like I think they're able to score, maybe stay with the Hoyas, but I don't think like it's going to be double digits for both teams type of game. Like, but I think Georgetown, like, I think they're going to bear down at home. They're not like thinking about at-large stuff, but this is a win against a high-quality RPI team. Like, it's going to be a good win for them. And I think they do need a good win, like, just to kind of be back into that, hey, don't forget about us type of thing. Like, this is a game that, Richmond's more than a capable opponent. But I think, I'm with that. I guess it's a trust thing. I'm just going to go with Warren. I think this is the time of year where they, kind of lock in. It's going to be Big East play, and that's kind of where things like fall into place for them. And I think historically, I think also Georgetown is traditionally got that history pays for them up. But I'm going with Georgetown. I just feel like they're going to be able to take this one at home. It's kind of another thing for me. So yeah, I'm going with Georgetown.
That's an interesting one here. Saturday night lacrosse from Philly. 7 p.m. A top 20 ranked matchup in the Ivy League. Dartmouth at Penn. How are you feeling?
Yeah, just wanted to close out. Yeah, 0-3 against the Hoyas. Not that that matters or anything, but yeah.
I just realized we skipped over BU at Army. We'll do Dartmouth at Penn, then we'll go back to BU and Army.
Yeah, no, perfect.
So, yeah. All right. Dartmouth and Penn.
Dartmouth Penn or St. Joe's?
Dartmouth at Penn.
I'm going Dartmouth, dude. Like, great wave. This is, Sean Kerwin's breakout season. I think they're going to be fourth in the Ivy. And I think this is going to be the game that, like, if they can get this one, take down Brown, the rest of the way it's just house money if they get another one. And I just don't like Penn. All respect to the Quakers,
The offense, man.
But offensively challenged, yeah, man. Like, offense comes separate when it comes to the Quakers, and St. Joe's is no slouch or anything, but that loss, like, combined, the Georgetown game, the games that they've lost is like nothing to be ashamed about, but they don't score. Like, Georgetown 6, North Carolina 8, Duke 8. Nova, they barely cross over into double digits. Brown, they won that game by 1, 9-8. St. Joe's, they lost that one by 1. Only got 10 goals. Like, it's just like defense is right there, but offense efficiency just is really lacking. And then you're not getting what you really need in terms of offensive punch. Like, so I don't know. I just don't see it. I think Dartmouth, like, is quietly having like a kind of a breakout season, for them. Only loss was to UMass, non-con schedule, leaves, a little bit to be desired, but, they're winning these. And again, we've kind of been noting, like, maybe you're not playing the toughest opponents, but like, are you dominating, or you're like holding them, under double digits in offense? And to a large extent, yes. Like, Bucknell, but they gave up 11 there, but after that, they lost to UMass, but Holy Cross, they only gave up 4, Vermont 9, Siena, they gave up 13, but then Utah, having kind of a subpar regular season, 9, Hobart, blasted them 17-5. Yeah, it kind of like what I'm seeing there, and I don't know, I just like vibe wise, I just feel like Dartmouth's like playing really good, and maybe they kind of found something up there in New Hampshire, and like they're going to bring it to the Quakers this weekend.
Yeah, I just look at this, and these are two teams who the defense is the strength of both of these teams. So far, it appears. Neither team, like Dartmouth's a decent face-off team. Again, their offense doesn't blow doors off. And in particular, one thing I'm looking at Dartmouth with current, like they're not turning the ball over. Just 6th in unadjusted turnover rate, 9th in adjusted. Like they're not turning the ball over on whatsoever. And they are clearing at a really high rate. So just not beating themselves so far. I'm just kind of thinking this feels like a sort of a classic Penn-ish game, which does make you kind of want to link towards Penn. But I'm feeling like Dartmouth, I don't think they're going to turn the ball over. I don't think they're going to. I think it looks like they're clearing it really well. Penn's not going to win faceoffs. They don't really do it against anybody. This is a good Dartmouth defense. It feels like a game probably where Penn will have trouble scoring. And who's going to make the fewest mistakes? I don't know. I see that Penn offense. There's just nothing. It's not even that they do anything. You look at them on offense and they have an obvious weakness per se. Do they? They don't shoot it terrible. I mean, they're 44th in unadjusted shooting percentage. Their schedule's tough. That's always the thing with Penn is the schedule they play is really tough. They're bottom 20 in turnover percentage. Again, when you adjust it, it gets better. It's more in the top 20. But just nothing. They don't do anything that I don't know what's the plan. What's their identity on offense? Who are they? What does Penn do? And I don't see that on offense at all. It's just a lot of dodging around, passing around, and guys will dodge. I did like against St. Joe's, they had some better off-ball movement. Like they had the more goals, kind of guys cutting the cage. It was better. But a lot of times, Penn guys it's so undynamic. It's just so fixed. Like there's nothing happening. That's the thing is I just don't. I don't know. I kind of look at this game and I feel like Dartmouth doesn't make mistakes. I don't know if I trust Penn to score goals. And this Penn team, when Penn's good, there's a certain magic to them. They force their way into close games. They don't have that this year. They're just getting beat. So yeah, I think this game with Dartmouth is going to be in it the whole way, and yeah, I think they can pull it out.
Just take care of the ball, play, what you've been able to do offensively throughout the year, and just don't collapse on defense just because, like, Penn's already offensively challenged. Like, I like the chances.
All right, Panzer, Sunday night. It's a classic Big Ten kind of game. Honestly, I don't want to cop out the injury feel like just this kind of feels like it really does feel in this case decides sort of the outcome to me. I don't think Penn State without those guys is able to score enough against Ohio State. If they are out there, I think that they will be. And of course, if you split the difference, if you get maybe Trainer or Lehman, I like Penn State's defense against Ohio State's offense. I think Ohio State's offense has certainly improved. I like they're taking care of the ball better. They've kind of identified some key pieces. Marinier is the big shooter from the outside. They kind of Garrett Hosmer behind the goal, but Penn State really. I don't know that you can. Penn State's going to take away what you do well on defense. They're going to take away your no-knowns. I think that's just going to make it a lot harder for Ohio State. Face-off play, I think, should be a positive here for Penn State. But, Ullman's had some success for the Buckeyes. If Penn State's offense, has a piece there, I think that they have the pieces in place to be able to attack, make things tough on Ohio State's defense. They've got guys who their Ohio State shorties will. I really like Ohio State shorties, but Penn State's got midfielders that can dodge, and that can, along in conjunction with they got the attack, makes it difficult. And of course they move well. Also, it's Panzer. It's Sunday night. That's such a tough place to win. I like Penn State, but again, I want to kind of cop out. I feel like if they're not there, Ohio State's defense could really kind of choke them out, and make it tough to score and run close to them. So I'm going to presume that they get back healthy. They've had a week off. You said, I think that's big. And I'll say that in that case, I'll pick Penn State. I'll ride with Penn State either way. Panzer Sunday night. But I'm not gonna. No, I won't change my pick. If we won't get the lineup, but I do think the injuries are actually like a real significant part of this game. Either way, one or another.
Jake, one of our big testaments is teams that are both in the really top 10, sort of stretching this out, but top 20 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, and Ohio State right now, right on the edge. The 20th offensive efficiency and adjusted defensive efficiency is top notch. Right behind Maryland and Army at third. Jake, it took a whole lot of time to get up this hill. It did. Now we're up in the big leagues, getting our turn to back. I'm loving Ohio State too. I'm involved. It feels like I'm falling in love again. Alex Marinier, quietly having a really great season. We love the stats: 29 goals, 1 assist. That's a hitter. That's That's what I want to see. I'm Big Nick. But outside of him, they're confidently solid. The Garrett Haas, Ryan Donnery, Shane O'Leary, Ed Sheen. But they're dudes. Yeah, double digits in goals: 14, 13, 11, 11. Haas is co-leading the team in assists with Griffin Turner. Yeah, they got the edge back, the little thing that went on with Denver. And I was like, they're already doing this in non-con like this. I can't wait for Big Ten play. It's again, I don't think it was a cheap shot. And you and me were talking about that play in the DM, and I didn't really think it was a headshot. I think it was just more the ref took that reaction to how it seemed more like an aggressive push than a hit the head. But the main point is they've got that little edge to them again. I hate that word swagger, but they get some close to charisma. They're feeling like, I don't want to say 2017, but they're feeling back to hey, we're a player here, and not the kind of the doldrums that they had the last few seasons. but just more free offensively. I think we've always been begging. What was a great line that you had? Take the governor off. Just let him fly out there, and like, yeah, it feels like just like But I think that comes with winning. Confidence. You don't get confidence by through failure. What I mean? You feel confidence because you get success and you get that affirmation of that success, and it kind of just builds on itself. And I feel like this Ohio State team is gaining confidence. And I'm with you. It's just like loving Penn State, but if your attack is like not fully healthy, is the trainer going to be in there? Like it's just a couple questions. Even with them playing at home, even playing as well as they did, it's a great win against Cornell. Without their attack, that you can't do that throughout the year. You get it, and as you noted, that game, like they struggled to score 6-on-6, and honestly, if it wasn't for that non-releasable penalty at the very end of the game, like do they win that? Again, not to take away from them, they won, and Cornell's like kicking themselves that they gave that up. But those are things that will come to play, at least in my mind. So I'm back. Yeah, Jake, it took a long time, but I'm back and I'm feeling good about Ohio State. So I'm going with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, indeed. Both of us picked Army or BU, by the way. So when BU wins, forget we said that. All right. Good stuff, Safe. Glad to have you back.
Can't wait for this week.
We'll see on the Power Hour. A little tricky this week because we got two games, two Saturday evening games. You're going to might go to the Syracuse or the Princeton-Harvard game. I might be busy in the early afternoon, so I don't know if we might have to either run it later. We'll see. But how will you know when we go live? You hit the subscribe button on YouTube.
Subscribe.
You hit the subscribe button. You turn the notifications on, and turn those notifications on. It will tell you 30 minutes ahead when we are going live. So subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're liking any of our videos, we'd appreciate hitting the like button. We've been having a lot of fun with the Power Hour. Be happy to have Safe back. And fun to do these pods. Yep, it's fun time of year. Things are about to heat up. Weather's gonna heat up. Things are about to heat up as well. So we're excited for it.
Yeah.
All right. Big lunch present.